Morning, everybody. Thank you for your attendance at this operations meeting. Start the meeting with Karakia as per norm. E tū noa ana na maunga whakahi. E rere ana na awa kōrero. E hui hui tātou I raro I te whakaro kotahi. Kia ata whakaro, kia ata kōrero, kia ata mahi. Mata mahi nui, mata whakaro nui. Ka tūtuki ai na kaupapa. Tēnei te karanga, te kotahi te hoi, o te painga o te katoa. Tēnā koutou, tēnā tātou katoa. Right, we have apologies from Councillor Rawinia, who's just put her arm through a window and is heading off to hospital for stitches. We've got online, really? Yep, there. And we've got a mayor's apology for lateness and an apology from Councillor Tibble.
I move.
Moved by Councillor Taruheru, seconded by Councillor Rea. All those in favour?
Aye.
Against? Declarations of interest. Confirmation of the non-confidential minutes from the 5th of June, that's on page 5.
You're happy to move?
Yeah, I'll second.
Moved by Councillor Foster, seconded by Councillor Telfer. All those in favour?
Aye.
Against? Carried. Have a look at the action register. And the governance work plan, we'll take that as well. All right, we have no leaves of absence, acknowledgements and tributes. Right, we've got a public input from the Avan Polo Surf Lifesaving, value of investment in surf lifesaving presentation. Who's coming in? Yes, welcome. Welcome, Avan.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
That's a pleasure. You can sit or stand, grab a seat.
I'll say make it easy for me all.
Yeah. Quick introduction, and let us know what you're about.
Yeah, no problem. Just get my notes together. Tēnā koutou katoa, kua hui hui mai nei, ko Avan Polo aho, e Marihana aho mo, Surf Lifesaving New Zealand Eastern Regional Manager. My colleague in the back, Matt Cairns, is the National Paid Lifeguard and Search and Rescue Manager for New Zealand. Here is moral support, you might say. Yep. Inara taku toe I te toa takatahi, inagari he toa takatini. Success is not the work of an individual, but the work of many. Surf Lifesaving New Zealand is exceptionally grateful for the positive relationship we have with Gisborne District Council and its staff. It's such a positive and collaborative relationship that contributes to the well-being of communities that we serve together. The paid lifeguard planned service delivery is planned for a 6-week service, which is at Waikanae, Wainui and Midway, and a 3-week service at Tolaga Bay. And the question I'll pose here for you is, in there we have service delivery for the next 3 years with a rate of increase of 4%, which covers both rate of inflation and also wage indexing to ensure that we provide the services to the levels that we agree with you today. But should we look to include I suppose the question is the living wage. Currently we don't contribute the living wage, but as a council you have since 2016, and it's something if we were to look at it, it would adjust the figure that we're asking or aligning with council to the level of 28.95 as is recorded online. I'll leave that to question time. Communities don't differentiate between paid lifeguard service, and we are now a part of the critical first response in a chain of events that we just go out and serve the community. It's no longer just between the flags. Last season, as a region, we contributed to help saving 133 lives, assisted a further 224 people to safety. Without our intervention, it wouldn't have been possible that they would have gone home. Performed over 9,800 preventative actions, which is a direct result of our intervention and our relationship with communities and keeping them safe and out of danger. And all in all, contributing over 74,000 patrolling hours to the community, servicing their needs and keeping them safe. Breaking it down into last season's numbers or data for Gisborne Tairāwhiti, the patrol data shows that there is the paid lifeguard service hours and also the volunteer lifeguard hours. And then there are other hours which are captured in the total hours, which equate to some search and rescue hours and also include the event safety that we provide our events and other events in the community. All in all, that's saving 19 lives in the district and making sure that 17 other people go home to their families during that season. Our commitment is to keeping people safe, and with your support, together we can continue to do that. Together we continue to meet the demands and uphold the commitments to public safety and welfare. And we propose that in partnership with you that we provide this service, and if the paid lifeguard service is adopted into the annual plan and long-term plan, it will provide our organisation and our service to your region surety and consistency, and allow us to plan and make sure that the lifeguards have an understanding of what the summer's offering ahead, and also make sure that we support those communities and they know as well. All in all, I keep that really short. That's me, and now I have time for questions.
Thanks, Avan. Thank
you very much, Mr. Chair. Thank you very much, Mr. Polo, for your presentation. You did make a mention about the living wage. I've got a couple of questions in regards to that. What is currently the East Coast hourly rate, and also what's Surf Lifesaving New Zealand's position on the living wage nationally?
That's a really good question, and one that we're working through. The paid lifeguard service is going through a national review from service delivery through to funding and ongoing, I suppose, commitments and also processes in terms of improving our service. The current wage for an entry-level lifeguard across the eastern region and nationally is $25.50 for a first-year lifeguard. Then pardon my tongue gets in the way, 3 years plus it's about $26.50 or is $26.50, and the starting wage of a head lifeguard with moderate experience is $29. So if we were to adjust to the $28.95, there'll be a sliding scale that reflects that increase on the positions and seniority, and that equates to about a 9,000 or 10,000 increase over that time. But that has all been looked at. Some councils around the country insist that the paid lifeguards are paid living wage, and that's particularly a lot in the South Island and a couple of councils in the central region, which is Hawke's Bay, Tairāwhiti down. So there are pockets of it, but we can't implement it unless it's done in partnership with council.
Supplementary. Thank you for that information. That was really helpful. What I would like to know, though, is independent of what councils reckon, what's Surf Lifesaving's position in regards to the living wage?
There is no official standard answer, but I can get one from the national, when I say our national office, our CE and stuff, but the salaries as a whole is being reviewed this year with a new people and culture person coming to the organisation. So that will be positioned, and it also forms a part of the review of the paid lifeguard service. So we'll have a more formal position once that's complete.
Awesome. Thank you, Mr. Polo.
Dates on that?
The review's taking place it started at the beginning, October, at the end of the season. It started the planning of review in October, which was the start of our season. We've done the first part of it, which is a surveying of all clubs and past lifeguards. That's formulating the next strategy part of how the service is delivered and going from there. So that will be, excuse me, Matt, do you know a timeline, the finishing part?
We've sort of been through a lot of the research. We're running design over the next period, which will include this season and the opportunity to speak to lifeguards and other partners during the season as well. So that'll run the next few months. So the idea is that we're implementing the changes at the end of the summer, so we have enough time for change management through to next summer. Where the paid lifeguard service has been run differently in 4 different regions, and then you look at council partnerships beyond that, and it's evolved a bit over time and is a bit different. So I guess to your point before, Josh, we'd absolutely look to have a position on that. One of around the living wage, we've sort of split the review into 2 parts, which is for the funding review, so the financial side of the paid lifeguard service and the operational side. So definitely something we'd look to keep council as a partner and Tairāwhiti representative work before we look to make changes, what our recommendations are.
Thank you, Matt.
The crux of the matter is the difference between what we're paying at the moment and what might be up for. Is there any analysis of that?
Sorry.
If there was a raise, what would be an expectation from council? Increased funding.
It would be so one of the things I wanted to highlight is that, you know, what I've put forward there is what we would do in terms of what we're paying now, and it maintains what we're doing. And we don't have a position, but I know as a council that you have a living wage position. So if it was to change and we align with that level, then that's the significant difference in what currently would contribute to what would be going forward. So it's a heads up in terms of how.
You had the figure though, didn't you?
Yeah, that's about $9,000 to $10,000 on top of each value each year. So that would. Excuse me, I have it on over here. So if we look at this year, it was 128,481. If the living wage was applied, it's 137,538. So that's a difference of just over 9.
Okay. Councillor Ria.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Kia ora. I just want to acknowledge that as a kid who grew up on the beaches in town and the beaches in Tolaga Bay every holiday I could get it with my aunties and uncles, that the service you provide is absolutely imperative in a beach coastal community, and appreciate all the work that you do. My question was around the volunteers. So I understand when volunteers work for an organisation that there is a monetary remuneration, but there are maybe courses or upskilling, and I understand that also takes funds to ensure that those kinds of things happen, because being a volunteer is a very humble, respectable thing to do for a community organisation that provides such a vital service. And I suppose, yes, the wages are important, but I think it's important too for the council to understand that there are other external costs that actually take to keep the volunteer parts of the organisation functioning and moving, so that it can tick along as best as it can.
You highlighted a really valid point, and so as an example, you're right, we put a lot of training or emphasis on training and development of our members. So that starts from when you first become a lifeguard. You go through a number of hours to understand what's required to become a lifeguard. There are courses that then go on, so you become a lifeguard. You can go to an intermediate guard school where we teach them about leadership and responsibility, along with the pathways and other opportunities within Lifesaving. You know, they have education on how to make rescues around rocks. They have IRB crew modules. They have IRB drivers modules. So there's quite a strong structured pathway of development and skill acquisition to becoming a lifeguard. One thing that doesn't really get publicised, or we don't really acknowledge very well or communicate very well, is that we have quite a strong leadership program up and above into BD Leaders for Life, where young lifeguards in their late teens, early 20s take part in a 12-long leadership program called BP Leaders for Life. Out of that 10-year program, there are now a number of those young leaders and our community leaders either within their own club or in other areas of the community, and the skills that they acquire and the relationships that they get through the mentoring and I suppose our organisation and outside our organisation are significant benefits to not just us but the communities in which they serve or go to serve as their careers progress. So yes, you're right. We also contribute significant amount of money as clubs as well as organisations into the infrastructure and supporting the services that we provide. So the lifeguarding equipment provided by clubs is given in a partnership agreement with Surf Lifesaving New Zealand to deliver our paid lifeguard service. And we did some rough numbers. It's around about 130 to 100 of equipment that services any one location at any one time at a basic needs, and then you've got others that have more than that when required.
Thank you.
Sorry.
Yeah, supplementary.
I just want to acknowledge, because I am aware of the voluntary group that did exactly what you're saying. They built up a group of teenagers in Tolaga Bay over 10 years under Avian, and that was so extremely successful, not just for those kids and for their health and for their, given that they are beach children.
Which is questions.
Sorry, it's not a question, just an acknowledgement.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Sorry, Councillor.
That's all right. Yeah.
First, we've got Councillor Taruheru on the line. Morning, Annie.
Tēnā koe te, morena everybody. Thank you for the presentation. I just noted that I'm up here in Wharekahika. Our beautiful beach, Onepoto, is one of the beaches that's very safe, for one of the only ones safe for swimming apart from Tolaga Bay. But and I'm just wondering why Onepoto is not featured on your map. I mean, your stats around paid lifesavers. We're very fortunate that Peter Boyd comes up every summer for a couple of weeks, him and a few others. So I'm just wondering how that works and why, given that we're one of probably the most popular swimming beaches in the summer, we're not on your map.
It is a beautiful place that you are, and one that we're very lucky with. Peter Boyd and the club Ngāti Porou are helping service the community. Currently there's no facilities up in there for us to I suppose base ourselves and provide a service. One thing that we are working with Ngāti Porou on a feasibility of a bricks and mortar place up on the coastline there, and that is the future of Lifesaving. Peter, so with that, we can't just put a building in place. It needs to be adopted by the community in a way that they're contributing to the well-being and infrastructure of the members that help service the community up there. So an example, in any other club where they're in a rural, remote location, the community help provide numbers to patrol those beaches, to train those lifeguards. And while Tolaga Bay is a busy club, it is one that we are working with to strengthen and rebuild. Ngāti Porou has been approximately 10 years, which has evolved from a Waka Ama Club, trying to service the need of coastal marae through interactions of water safety education and teaching people how to be safe in collecting and working in and around their waterways. So in short, we're trying to work with Peter and the community up there to identify a partnership approach to a facility so that at least the club can start their volunteer patrols with community input. If we were to go up there, there are a couple of challenges from a paid lifeguard service point of view, is to be able to house lifeguards if we have to bring them in. So that's a cost to both the organisation and the individual lifeguard. But then also, I'd be asking for more money, or council, sorry, for more money to patrol that location. And as you can see, 3 weeks of service at Tairāwhiti Bay equates to about $25,500 or $26,000 of service. So that's what we would be asking for from council to help support that, and also helping maintain a place for lifeguards to stay if we needed to.
Thank you, Rick.
Thank you. So given I'm doing my mental maths, there must be 2 lifeguards on duty at any one time, I'm assuming. And my quick question is, really just a yes or no answer, is has there been a study on the investment in lifeguards versus on numerous beaches that we cover on the coast, investing money into portable rescue belts? Any research done on that?
There's been a coastal safety research done on Gisborne Tairāwhiti approximately 3 years ago, but it was based on the patrol locations and where we are. To take that further would be having someone to evaluate the respective risk at each location and put a matrix across it to make recommendations. One of the things Surf Lifesaving New Zealand is advocating for is coastal safety signage and public rescue equipment, and there is something that we've put in place with a number of councils, whether it be inland waterways as well as beachside suburbs, and to unfortunate drowning approximately 3.5 years ago, Polo made a recommendation that that's something that councils and Surf Lifesaving should work more collaboratively on that. In terms of the numbers of lifeguard, we operate in a minimum number of 3 lifeguards. We have an ability to moderate that between Waikanae and Midway because of the proximity of both clubs. So we will rotate the patrols across, the members across, so that they support each other. So that would be a minimum of 5, but during your summer, particularly New Year, that increases because of the beach usage.
Thank you. Before I go to Councillor Telfer, you still got your hand up, Annie. Did you have a supplementary? No, thank you. Councillor Telfer.
Yeah, no, thanks for that. Just clarifying a point you made. You asked originally there, you were talking about a 4% increase for inflation and whatnot. Then you asked a plus on wage and then a plus on the living wage. And in your paper, they also was asking about being included in our long-term plan.
Yes.
Look, I think I'd like to see that something actually on paper, the justification of those 3 increases, but also for the inclusion in our long-term plan. It'd be good if you could put a paper forward to us outlining all that, because to be able to include it in the long-term plan, we need to know what we're actually locking and loading into that. So that would be good.
No, I acknowledge that that's what would be required, and today was to thank council for their support, to give an indication, because we're now in the planning stages for the coming summer, is to lock in an amount so that we can plan appropriately, and in terms of long-term plan, we'll be able to put something together that highlights the need for an annual 4% increase.
Okay, thank you, Rick. We've just got through time. So.
Sorry.
Oh, Councillor Foster.
Just one question. What incidents outside of your beach environment you get involved with at times? I mean, because it's not just, I know the service is widely recognised in not just your beach activity, but other ones around this region. So what are they? What have you been involved with outside of?
I'll try to be brief. Besides just getting in the water and taking or bringing people to safety, there are a number of other services, particularly in and around. We get called to caravan parks or holiday homes from someone that has had a cardiac arrest or is suffering from other illness or ailments that are unrecognisable as a first responder support until ambulance come. Our search and rescue capability does everything from river safety, river searches, inner harbour searches, and all around the place inland. So we also lend support in some way into the SAR space as well. So we're not just limited to cuts and abrasions on the beach or broken limbs, but there are significant reaches into the community across because people have identified and recognised our skill set and our ability to be agile quicker than most because we're in close proximity.
Thanks very much. Thank you, Avan. Thanks, Matt.
Thank you, everybody.
Right. Okay, so no extraordinary business, no notice of motion, and no adjourned business, so we'll get straight into our reports as we've got them, and we've got a bit of a change of order there. We're going straight to the Tairāwhiti Museum Annual Plan, which is on page 100. Welcome. Thank you very much. Museum's looking good. I was over there a week ago. Awesome. So we've got Tapuinga, Nepe, and Taruheru. Thank you.
Ka tira ia kura ngatira tēnā pota katoa. I ngā tata i ngā tini āwata o te wā. O tira, ko ngā ti Māori, takoto moira ki Avan si tēnei rā. Me te tangi hia, a koe ni ka whakahoki atu ki programi. O tira ngama te huhua o te wā. Kia kura ngatira tēnā pota katoa. Greetings, I just acknowledge Mari Collier, who's lying at Evans right now. He just, they'll be returning here to programming marae this afternoon. So just, and there's so many who passed away recently, but we acknowledge those who passed away. And just actually the important work that you all do, so ngā mihi kia koutou, councillors. So, ko hikurangi maunga ko Waiputau o Ngāti Poroti. My name is Polo. I'm the Ngāti Poroti representative on the board. So we've had a few changes just recently. Just want to acknowledge Michael Muir. They have a 21 years service to the Tairāwhiti Museum and to our community in terms of the care of our taonga and the heritage of this community. Tairāwhiti. Kia ora tātai. Just in terms of the makeup of our board, just thought I'd just update people on that if you don't know that just recently. So like, so our members are the Friends of Tairāwhiti. It's Junie Harry Hindmarsh, Christine Walsh, and Fleur Gardner. And of course, we'll be replacing Michael, so we'll leave that up to the Friends of the Museum to find a new replacement for Michael. Gisborne District Council, Alan Valatua. We have one more applying for Gisborne District Council. And representing our iwi, it's Penny Brown for Tautanga Mahaki, Steve Gibbs for Maitā Manuhiri, Romia Panga for Rongo Pakata, and Taitanga Hauiti, that's Cynthia Sydney. And of course, I'm Ngāti Porou. The new chair, I was elected as chair back in June. And our deputy chair is Jenny Hari Hindmarsh. My work, I work for Te Papa Tongarewa, National Museum in New Zealand, and I'm based here in Gisborne. I work in a team, National Services Te Wharangi. We do outreach. So Te Papa looks after the National Collection. Our work is around communities, around the country, supporting them in the care of taonga and heritage. Just so recently, work we've done is out at Rangatira Marae, and actually, Te Ngākwe Ani, we are supporting the Tairāwhiti Museum and with some work up there at Hicks Bay. So I've been working for the National Museum for about 12 years now. Whenever we work together with the Tairāwhiti Museum in Cape Town, well, of course I declare my conflict of interest, and we have another colleague that I have here in Gisborne, Sally August. Other than that, next thing, just the status of our board. And just recently, we've signed the lease agreement and contract of services with Gisborne District Council. Tatai, I'll just hand it over to Tapunga now. to follow up with
Good everyone, this will be my second time in this forum, so tēnā koutou kei ngā rangatira e noho nei I ngā tepu. I suppose with the annual plan, just reflect on what was just mentioned in regards to the lease and service agreement with GDC. Key part of that and was part of the last annual plan was the joint asset management plan. So in development from last year, what has come of that is, I suppose, the completion of the Leisner House roof. And now Tairāwhiti Museum will start to plan around the roof works for the museum. Hopefully getting into that sometime this year. So that's a major part of that works from Tairāwhiti Museum. Besides that, in the annual plan here, I'm sure that you've had time to read, just some highlights, I suppose, from last year visitor numbers. So we definitely met our target of 45,000. We've reached 56,108. Education services has been another highlight from previous years, with the target of 8,600 and still the same for this annual plan target. We reached 1,451. I suppose, yeah, as mentioned, the highlight for us for this annual plan is working with GDC, continue work with GDC in regards to the roof works. Yeah. Otherwise, any other questions? It's normal business as usual. Any other questions from council, from the table? Happy to answer.
Yeah, thanks for that. It does look very much like a BAU budget. So, when I go through that, it seems like continuations. Any questions? Councillor Alden.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for the report. Am I right in noting that the money that you're asking for the council is a 5.44% increase? Are you asking for more money in this budget?
No. No. My understanding is that GDC has approved an increase, and that was in the previous year.
So that was the previous year, okay.
Yep.
That was,
As I said,
25-26. 25-26 is 775.
Yeah.
And the previous year was 735.
Yeah.
Right.
But my understanding that, yeah, it's already been approved by GDC.
It's in the 3-year plan. So we plan for 3 years. That's where the money comes from.
Okay, just understanding that. Thank you.
thank you. Councillor Telfer.
Yeah, just last year we discussed this, I know when I brought it up. Just on the deficit, last year was running at 179,000, and we talked about that, how sustainable that is going forward. And this year it's down to a basically 90,000 deficit. Just, yeah, with any organisation, it is concerning that we're not meeting our expenses. I know there's a community good here, but that is covered by the grants from GDC. So I'm just wondering where's the plan there, or have you got any extra income plan to come into the organisation?
Yeah, thank you for the question. I suppose in response there are two things. That included a non-cash depreciation charge of 120k, but also included the MCH fund for a special project that continued this year and ended in December with 2 new staff members. So that you will see in the next report, the next annual report, where that we should be out of that deficit due to that special project with MCH. So that funding continued through the following year and ended just in December, hence why that.
Councillor Rea.
Happy to move the report.
Okay. Moved by Councillor Rea.
I'm having a second.
Second by Councillor Foster. No further questions? Oh, thanks, and thanks for the great work over there. It's a real asset to our community, and not only our community, it's our incoming tourists and that. And a lot of people over there and learn a lot. So thank you very much.
I would just also from us extend a warm thank you. I'm wondering on your database if we could include all councillors' emails as well, because I get the invitations often to events, but it would be great that councillors can also pop in. So I'll make sure my office pass on, if councillors are happy, just to pop in. Lots of those are just fun events that you can pop in a week or over some time, but it's great to have councillors involved as well. But thank you for your great mahi. Kia ora.
On that note, Mike's Bedding's having an exhibition on Friday nights.
There we go. Invite sent. Thanks a lot.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Sorry? For the noting. Right, so that was moved and seconded, and all those in favour?
Aye.
Yes, carried. Thanks for that, Deb. Okay, we get back into the update on the Natural Heritage Fund, which is page 14. Good morning. So update of progress with where everything's at.
Yeah, so that was the update on the projects funded in the 2024 round of the Natural Heritage Fund. It was the highest number of projects funded to date in 2024, with 20 projects, and to have all but one of those completed is a really good result.
Just a quick question of curiosity more than anything. We had two projects which were funded 10K in the track. So one was 30 traps and one was 57, so it's the same amount awarded. Just curious to know the price of those traps, because it does say toward the purchase of those traps.
So this one is Winneray.
Yep. And the other one's Eastern Field.
Yeah, so they purchased the 8220s. Those are the self-resetting automatic traps, so they're quite a bit more expensive than your normal sort of DOC 200 or DOC 250.
Yeah.
I think they retail around about $580 per trap.
Yep.
But the benefit of those is when you place them in a very remote location, such as this, they only need servicing around every 4 months. Yeah. They're self-resetting, so with your other traps, it goes off once. It's not catching anything else until you go back and reset it. So the other one.
Yeah, I think with the question, quite often we're used to seeing photographs of boxes, traps, and when I sort of did the calculation on the number, they are quite expensive, but they're obviously doing a far greater job, collecting greater numbers of pests. Anyone else? Thank you.
I'm happy to move the paper, and fantastic to see the feedback and what people have done and how they've contributed half ka pai, and I look forward to seeing the applicants for this coming year.
Yep.
Mr. Pathogenicity.
I'm happy to second Mr. Chair, and also I do really want to remind us about our increase of support into this space as well. I should say the increase of the funding from the Natural Heritage Fund in order for us to be able to deliver on a lot of this work. Like this is one of those really great parts that get to come across our table as council. It's a 50-50 thing between funding and the community. It's one of those things where the pool has increased, so we're able to do more regionally. And this is really effective work around protecting our natural landscape and things like that, our awa, our ngāhere. So happy to second.
Thank you. All right, if there's nothing further, it's been moved by Mayor and second by Councillor Wharehenga. All those in favour?
Aye.
Against, carried. Right, moving right along to this cemetery update, page 36. Tyler, is it? Tyler. Tyler?
Would entertain tātou. This is a quick update on the work that we've undertaken to future-proof our cemetery land provision into the future. So, following some concerns around the capacity of some of our sites, we took on a feasibility study of 587 Nelson Road, which is land adjacent to the existing Taruheru cemetery, and then a capacity review of all of our existing land held in or near the urban area for cemetery purposes. At a really high level, what we found is that 587 doesn't have great potential for use as cemetery. The groundwater is particularly high there. The good news is that we found across our existing cemetery sites, we have a lot more capacity than we thought, and with some clever design, we think we can stretch Taruheru for a further 30 years and Patutahi up to 50 years. So, benchmarking against other councils, we have good provision of cemetery land. There are two key next steps from here. We will undertake a groundwater investigation of Patutahi Cemetery to totally confirm that that full site, 7.5 hectares, would be suitable for development into the future, and kind of eliminate any risk around decisions to use that. We also think that there is a strategic decision to be made by council to confirm that approach of better use of existing land as opposed to acquiring new. But the right time to make that decision would be through the review of the cemeteries plan within the Community Facilities Strategy Review in 2027. And so we're not proposing any decision today, rather an update and sharing the information that we have.
Thanks, Tyler. Yeah, it did look like it was going to be quite a financial commitment, acquiring land and consenting land and all that. So it's a bit of a road to read this actually. Anything further? Councillor Telfer.
Yeah, that's quite interesting because we had quite a discussion around that piece of land originally, whether because it was straight across the road with the water, and it's proved that was right. I'm just curious, this is a piece of land we've now identified that's not fit for purpose, what it was intended for. Is this a piece of land that we'll look at selling? Because, you know, there's holding costs of land, and, you know, ratepayers need to know that we're looking at all options. So is that something we move forward, or what's the plan now for that land?
Through the chair, that land has been held sort of for its potential future purposes. It's zoned as heritage reserve. We would suggest sort of no immediate decision be made on it. It is being grazed presently. The time probably to consider its future use would be in the context of a land portfolio review by council in the future, and probably following a decision confirming council's approach of using its existing land or acquiring in the Community Facilities Strategy Review.
Thanks, Tyler. Councillor Pathogenicity.
Yeah, it's really good question, a really good thing for us to consider now. A really good question from Councillor Telfer. I mean, if the paper has indicated that, 30 years and 50 years will come very quickly, you know? So, and something like this, if this didn't have such far-reaching, wide-reaching kind of public good or public services kind of attached to it around the cemetery, and I'll be more inclined for us to try to strip out some of the things. I agree with Councillor Telfer, strip out some of the things that we potentially don't need. But for now, like I think that maybe that is a conversation to have later on in about 30, 50 years. But Councillor Telfer, I agree with the sentiment of Councillor Telfer's point, is that there are some of these things, we need to be giving that kind of interrogation to the bits and pieces that we hold as council. So it's nice to hear that there's already that knowledge kind of intrinsically sitting inside you there. But I guess the formalisation of that kind of thinking.
Thank you, Councillor.
I'm happy to move to if it hasn't been moved. It makes complete sense to me, and thank you for the update.
Yep.
Second.
Second, Councillor. No further. Okay.
Just one comment, because I'm exactly the same actually. I mean, I was really pleased when I read this to find out that that land wasn't going to be used for this, for the extension of the cemetery, because it's, the whole area has been identified as a high growth area, and there's already housing being built there, and there's more development going to happen in that area, and this is a prime piece of land that extends onto that. So, and for us to sit on it and not to consider any future use, I would encourage us to start thinking about that quite urgently, because having it as a heritage reserve, and we've just gone through our TRAMP and we've looking at all our different rezoning. So, that should be coming under rezoning. And I don't know if a heritage reserve has a different type of context to rezone and a different type of procedure, but at the end of the day, it's a high growth area, and that's where all our direction has been pointed. So I'd hate to see a bit of land like that stifle some growth in our region.
Thank you. All right, that's been moved by Councillor Taruheru and seconded by Councillor Rea. All those in favour?
Aye.
Carried. Next we have the high pathogenicity, Avian Influenza, 95. Apparently it's going to come one day. Not quite sure which day.
It has taken me months to figure out how to say high pathogenicity Avian influenza. The purpose of this noting paper to you today is to just give you a high-level overview of HPN15 or bird flu. So as outlined in the paper, this particular strain of bird flu, highly virulent, it's been going around the world for since 2020. In November last year, councils across the country were requested by central government to start to do some preparation planning in the eventuation that this bird flu will at some point in time arrive. So this bird flu, just key points, it is highly virulent amongst bird species. The transmission rate to humans is very, very low. It is not a human pandemic. It has not yet transmuted into a human pandemic. So these are all the key messages coming out from our One Health partners, which is Ministry of Health, MPI, and the Department of Conservation. From a local government council point of view, we've done a piece of preparation planning work, particularly in Michelle's hub, because we hold the functions of biosecurity, biodiversity, waste management, and parks. So what we are anticipating is that if or when bird flu arrives in New Zealand, we and other councils across the country will most likely need to respond on the ground in terms of our parks and public spaces. MPI will lead the response in commercial poultry farms, as they do with any other biosecurity hazard. The Department of Conservation will lead the response for threatened species on public conservation land. Just fresh off the press, Doc, I hear this morning, have found some success with a vaccine for New Zealand native birds, which is great news, because that was the great unknown for New Zealand, because all the data to date over the species that have been impacted by bird flu, none of them are kakapo, kiwi, kiruru, they're not our native species. So Doc are finding that the vaccine they've been trialling apparently will be quite efficient against this particular strain of bird flu, which is very good news. So we are in a wait and see. Our comms approach is aligned with MPI. We're not going to start to roll out comms until we are instructed by the Ministry of Primary Industries. So we're not off doing our own thing. So our key message at this point in time is be alert but not alarmed. In the background, we, MPI, Department of Conservation, have various things in place so that we're ready to go if or when this becomes a problem.
Yeah, that's pretty interesting. I was just wondering, it's probably a Doc question more than us, but just wondering the really threatened species of bird, which are really low in numbers, how do you vaccinate?
That
was my question.
You vaccinate a bird.
Well, putting on my having worked for Doc back in the day hat, the particular where Doc have captive species, so places like Codfish Island, Whenua, here in this district, Waikawa, Portland Island, which is shore plover, so that's a potential site where those birds can be vaccinated. But you're quite right, for birds that are out there in the great unwashed, we'll just have to wait and see. But what no one knows is how this bird flu will transmit through bird populations in New Zealand. The data we have is ducks, chickens, Unfortunately, rock pigeons, you know, all the pigeons in the Phoenix Palms, unlikely to get it. It's a great lead to a biodiversity test.
He's worried about his chickens.
So is it kind of
The numbers back to the legal limit.
Yeah, here we go. Pull it out. Iris will take care of them.
Councillor Thompson.
Yeah, thanks for that report. Yeah.
I'm holding my breath for this question.
I've got chickens, so I
How many again?
Chicken farmer, how many?
No, well, I can have lots of chickens now. I'm not in the city.
I'll come and count them.
Yeah, thanks for that link, because it was good to just be able to, without having to search for it, just look in our readings and go to that link and get a bit more info. And when I read it, it was good. Shit, you're not going to try and put masks on my chickens and vaccine my chickens and give them boosters, are they? And masks. But yeah, when I read that, it didn't mention anything about vaccines and all that reading in the news. Chickens aren't going to be forced to have vaccines and boosters, are they?
No, I understand overseas, particularly in America, they are starting to vaccinate commercial poultry flocks, you know, in their commercial sector. But I mean, the advantage we have in New Zealand is we can see what's played out in the rest of the world to date and work off that. But currently this virus being spread by migration, the closest it is to us is Antarctica. It is not in Australia, it is not in any of the Pacific Islands. The virus has been reported at being able to travel a good 6,000 kilometres across sea spread by migratory birds. So it is only a matter of time.
So is the virus getting weaker as time goes on and they sort of build up immunity?
From what I've read in the European scenario, there are some birds that are now getting a natural immunity to it. A bit like myrtle rust, I guess, that we've encountered here in Tairāwhiti. You know, first it was like it's going to kill every pahutakawa on the coast, but then as time's gone on, various plants have grown immune to it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
you, Mr. Chair. I suppose our closest example might be the Winaray Reserve, but we're quite fortunate that we have the EcoWorks team that are really dedicated to that pest management within that area, and they know they have tracking on all of their kiwi and there, so if that is ever to impact us locally, they come in. Awesome, amazing that there is some sort of vaccine that could possibly help if we need it. If we need it, happy with the report, happy to move it. Kia ora.
Thank you. Councillor Whare.
A second, Mr. Chair, and also Ms. Vizza, you always have very interesting papers. They must give you like the super detailed kind of papers to do. So thank you very much for bringing us this. I guess for the average Gisbornite, they'll go, why do we have this on our agenda? But it's not until it becomes an actual thing in our community that we're expected to be on top of, you know, that this becomes a rational part of our agenda. So thank you very much for bringing this to us. That's me, Mr. Chair.
All right, thank you. I've got nothing further, so moved by Councillor Rea, seconded by Councillor Whare. No further matters. All those in favour, just noting.
Aye.
Against, carried. Thank you. Taruheru Shared River Shared Pathway, page 115. We've got Tyler in the room for that. Declaration, we've got a perceived conflict of interest, and I do say perceived. There does seem to be a bit of confusion about what a conflict of interest is. As part of the Tapawai Cycling Walkway Trust, it could be perceived that I have a conflict. But I go back to the days of what happens in council where we often want champions to causes on council. I was a champion for the and I was a champion on the wastewater as well. So, you know, even though it's perceived that I've got a conflict, I'm actually working for a community interest, which is on our 10-year plan. So just noting that. Right, Tyler.
Apologies from Patrick, who's unfortunately unwell today, so I'll do my best to hold his place. But yeah, just wanted to start with an acknowledgement. This is a project that we're delivering in partnership with Tairāwhiti Trails Trust. Lyle, Gillian, Andy in the room here today, and yeah, we're just hugely appreciative of their input, and this is one that is it's being led with a lot of community leadership alongside some council support as well. The intent of this paper was just an update on the project and to preempt where this will come back to council. Effectively, since signing an MOU with the Tairāwhiti Trails Trust, we've worked to establish a steering group, undertake some engagement with community, with mana whenua, to do a review of the existing feasibility and business case work, and together we're working on a supplementary business case that's looking to improve its value proposition and also position the project for a wider range of funding options, which we think is prudent in the current environment. The intent is to bring back that near-finished business case to the new council at the end of the year to workshop the preferred options ahead of going out to community to consult on the preferred route option. So at this point, just, yeah, happy to take any questions, but the intent is an update on how we're working in partnership in the next steps.
Thank you. Councillor Foster.
Yeah, thank you. And yeah, you've got two options here, which this has been going on for a long time, and I congratulate the team being involved with this because it is an important initiative. The two options are real. They're both good options. You know, one is either obviously a lot dearer than the other one. Has there been any dollar value put on the two options? So is the difference at this stage?
Yep, there are indicative costings that will come back in the business case, totally sharpened. The difference between the two, yeah, was relatively significant. It was a number of millions, effectively, and that's driven by the fact that constructing a boardwalk structure in is really expensive compared to all alternatives.
And to do with the property owners along there, there's consultation taking place at the moment, or is it about to take place, or have you had consultation with the property owners along there?
The intent is that formal consultation would take place following the council workshop at the end of the year.
Oh, yeah.
Cool. Thank you. Councillor Ria.
I support the paper and I'd like to move it. Thank you very much.
Sorry, I'll second.
Just wanted to just note, Tyler, that I do know that the council has a working relationship with Te Aitanga Mahaki, who are also developing an overall Taruheru waterways catchment plan. And I'd really like to see some sort of communication happen between those groups. I mean, I know we're looking at the next 3 to 5 years that the shared pathway may only go as far as this point, but if it was to go any further than that, it would be really great if we start aligning those aspirations now, rather than the catchment team starts riparian planting out large areas when actually Trails thinks that there might be a possibility, so that we can get that relationship working together to ensure that if in 10 years' time we want to expand on this, then we've actually made provisions for it with what's and it flows into what might happen in the Taruheru catchment plan. But yes, I move the report.
Thank you. Anything else, councillors? All right, it's just a noting report at this stage, so it's been moved by Councillor Ria and Councillor Foster. All those in favour? Aye. Against? Carried. I might try to slip this one in for a couple of minutes so we finish the meeting. Tree planting update, page 126.
I'm very happy to move this. It is a great update on the good work, and people notice it. I have several people raise with me that they see the work happening And we should just ask the public to respect that, because I saw one early morning on my way to the airport that quite a few trees were damaged there. So please look after our tiny new little trees, because in a few years' time, they will be shading you and your dog when you go for a walk. Thank you. I'm happy to move the paper.
Councillor Telfer?
Yeah, just I'm all for it as well, but just want to make sure it is noted that any of these trees that have been planted are not in the future going to end up being trees that cause us real problems, getting too big, being removed, power lines, all those sorts of things. So that's been taken now, because there's a lot of people across the country having real problems trying to get trees removed, and we don't want to be contributing to that.
I know there's been a lot of work on that, and part of the work was root containment. Is that still something that happens at planting now?
Yeah. Yep.
So that's
through the chair, each tree planting is planned by consultant arborists, and we now have an arborist in-house as well that oversees our street tree planting. It's really about right tree in the right place, and there are tools that we can use like root barriers, which encourage root growth downwards as opposed to into surrounding surfaces. We avoid trees that have invasive root species as well, and we very much look at these from a life cycle perspective, having a tree in the ground, but also maintaining it appropriately and removing it when it needs to be removed as well, so that we can kind of have continuous cover of trees, but we're not stuck with old problematic trees, which is probably, it was a challenge when they developed the Street Tree and Gardens Plan in 2017. At that point in time, we had a very old and problematic network of street trees, and through active management, we're getting to a point where we've removed a lot of those problem trees, and we're starting to plant more appropriate species in better locations.
Thank you. Supplementary.
Supplementary, just while we're on that, any work been done on the palms and that down the main street? Because some of those are getting to a stage where they are really becoming a problem. So is there a plan for removing those?
Through the chair, there's not a plan for removal of those trees. They're frequently inspected, and they have maintenance work on them to remove the dead fronds. They're 5 years old, those trees. There have been a couple of failures in the last couple of years, but we'll certainly be considering, probably through the review of the Street Tree and Gardens Plan, the wood for those trees being all the same age and so significant. It warrants that level of consideration.
Thank you. Councillor Foster.
Yeah, thank you. Looking at all the different areas and streets that have been planted, it is noticeable that Custom House Street isn't included in that. I know it's a state highway, but it's probably one of our barest streets that we've got in our city environment, and it's a main connector from our city to the beach. So is there any plans in the future to put some trees along Custom House Street? And if so, what happens with Wakakatahi? Do we have to consult with them, or do they help pay, or
Through the chair, they would be the roading authority effectively in that area. So we would need to work with them very closely to plant in that area. I'm not sure if there's a plan in the future. That's probably beyond what I have visibility of, but I'll take that back as feedback.
Yeah, I mean, it's really noticeable that it's the only street without any trees on it at all. And it's our main access way, state highway. So, yeah. Thank you. Sow the seed.
Yeah.
So, point 6 on page 128. That our goal is 10% cover, and we're only 2.7, which requires a further 233 hectares to be planted. That sounds a huge figure. Is that measuring mature trees,
Through the chair, yeah, that is correct. So that's come out of the Urban Biodiversity Action Plan, which is a response to the statement for Indigenous biodiversity, with the anticipated expectation that councils will have a plan to achieve at least 10% Indigenous vegetation cover within their urban areas. The reason we make that point is that we believe street trees are a very tangible opportunity for councils to contribute to that vegetation cover. In some ways, yeah, some of our easiest areas to achieve that urban vegetation along parks and reserves effectively, but it's looking at Indigenous vegetation only and the total canopy cover.
Can everyone please speak up? I just got an email from someone saying they can't hear people, so just outside voices, thank you.
Because we are chopping trees down. There's a cul-de-sac, which I won't mention the name of, they've lost a whole lot of big trees. Personally, I thought it was a mistake. And we've also lost some big trees in other areas of the town. Are we going to be able to achieve this if we keep chopping trees down?
Yeah, through the chair, I think specifically with regards to street tree management, it's really critical that we remove problem trees along with planting the right trees. And say, unlike a typical revegetation project, us managing those appropriately and being able to increase our native trees in the road corridor is going to mean we will be actively managing those problem trees but before they cause significant issues. So in the road corridor specifically, tree removal does have to accompany planting, and it is a life cycle. So it's removing them before they become a problem and replacing them.
I was surprised about 6 because if you go up to the top of Kaiti Hill and you look out over Gisborne, it looks really well treed. You know, it's just the perception when you're out there looking over it. And to have that 233 hectare addition to it seems, yeah, but here's what it is. Right, is that the Mayor moving that and seconded by Councillor Telfer?
Yes.
Anything further? Nothing further? All those in favour? Aye. Against? Carried. Okay, that's the end of our public meeting. Just a word, we'll be going into infrastructure, but we do have a workshop which is slotted for 1 o'clock, but if we get through infrastructure, we'd like to get straight into that.
Just after our coffee break, I just want to welcome everybody to the infrastructure part of our operations committee this morning. Do we have any apologies? We have apologies the same as what we had before, I guess.
Councillor Tipple.
So they can go over.
Rawania.
And Rawania, Councillor Tipple.
I'll move that.
Moved by
I'll second.
Commissioner Premier, seconded by Councillor Gregory. All in favour?
Aye.
Have you got any declarations of interest on this paper, these papers?
Tairāwhiti River.
Okay.
I think that's going to come up.
Noted. Confirmation of non-confidential minutes.
Happy to move them.
Moved by Worship Premier. Seconded by Councillor Gregory. All in favour?
Aye.
Action register. Is there anything on that register that?
Excuse me, I'm having trouble scrolling. And I'm not the only one.
Yeah,
so can you move slightly slower for me, please?
Yeah, yeah, I've got to say, you know, there's something gone wrong with our Docs on Tap, because even at home, when I'm doing this at home, my screen is constantly going blank. I don't know what's going on here. So we need to contact Docs on Tap, because it's not, you know, every time we get an update on our phone, on the computers, something goes wrong. So no updates would be good.
I'm just speechless.
Oh, it's frustrating. Okay, governance work plan, nothing there. Leave of absence, there's none. Acknowledgements, tributes. No. Public input and petitions. Extraordinary business, notice of motion. Return business, there's none, so we'll go straight into page 12. Operations infrastructure update. Welcome, Tim.
Thank you, Chair. So first of all, operational infrastructure. We're kicking off with lands, rivers and coastal, and that is on page
16. We got anyone in? Just me at the moment. So taking the document as read, I will point out we've got we're covering TRI river management, some developing items there. Also, the completion of Moody's drain mentioned in this report, I think. But welcome any questions on this document.
Are we going section by section?
Yeah, we're just doing a section by section. That's the easiest way. I've just got a quick question to start with. On page 17, we're 136.53 over our annual budget for the year. Is what's actually, and we've been over previous years as well. It's great to see that the spend has been done, but is there any particular item that's put us over budget?
I'm going to have to refer to my team to find out what particularly is over the budget there. I'm just looking at the targets. None of the targets are over the budget.
No,
Sorry, I'll have to get back to you, Chair.
Okay, Councillor Ria.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just one partai around the woody debris removal. Given that we have experienced so much woody debris and we haven't budgeted it, previously, and moving forward, do you know if there will be a budget set down to clear and maintain the coastal area and beaches?
We call on Noma actually to respond.
Sorry, Chair. So as part of our recovery plan, we increase the contribution that we would make on just generally across the region, and also there was another differential that was put on for the forestry.
There was
clean up. So we had to include that.
That was the only question I had.
About 600k, 600 per annum that we had it on the recovery rate. Yep.
Right. And further to that, specific to bridges, we are looking for a line item for that purpose.
Councillor Older.
Thank you, Chair. On page 16.1, there's a comment there. Sorry, declared interest. I have lived on the TRI, still farm, and am affected by the TRI. The TRI, it says it here that the TRI manual spraying of willows is not sustainable long term. And then going down to point 17, where we have the amount of dollars that's been spent over the last 5 years on trying to control willows on the rivers, we have to realise and acknowledge here that an amazing job has been done by council to clear the TRI of its willow trees. But we have to realise that willow is a weed and that we need to start replacing it completely in some of our rivers so that the management of our rivers becomes sustainable. The other point I'd like to make is that, and not just coming from me, but talking to others on the river who have noted how the money has been spent over the last 5 years. And I believe that if we have a budget, it should be offered to the catchment group who are more in tune, have more of a vested interest in the management of that river.
You're conflicted.
I'm not talking just the TRI, I'm talking all catchments.
That's not what came through. You're advocating for the catchment group and a financial application. It's a conflict.
We need to, I will comment then, we need to get more bang for our buck that we're spending on river management.
Right.
Yeah. Where is Mooney's drain and what sort of shared arrangement was it for?
Mooney's drain, look, I've forgotten the name of the road it's parallel to, but it's out past sort of like View area. The arrangement that we came to was a partial cost share with the land owners who'd developed properties or had developed properties in the area but were unable to get complete consent because the drainage scenarios was quite complicated, and the relationship with drains is they travel through other people's properties who did not want to contribute or be part of that proposal. So council stepped in and funded some of that work to enable it to happen. The agreement was they pay for the physical pipe, and we put it in for the community. The work was 2 years of really challenging work between different landowners, and something that was quite challenging to complete. So it was a big effort getting it done. Lots of notes to Mayor's office, etc. on this particular location.
Any other questions on this particular?
Are we working through this report?
Yeah, we're just going to work through this. We'll do the infrastructure and the operations together. Would be the easiest way, I think, on each different section. So we're on urban stormwater operations.
36.
Yeah, that's 19.
So with respect to urban stormwater, we take the document as read, and really Aaron's here to answer any questions you might have.
A lot of great photos in there. Bikes, bikes, clogging up drains. Councillor Wharenga.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Thank you very much for the report. And as I understand it, we're taking the 1% the infrastructure.
Yeah, we'll do the two. I think it's
because
this way, isn't it?
yeah, because some of the questions kind of go over both, but it's not in regards to any specific. If I was specific, I guess I could talk about the stormwater part at the corner of I think it's Headley and Wainui, and we're constantly having to kind of go back in and sort things out that have been done previously. Are we on top of that kind of stuff moving forward off the back of your stormwater report here, Mr. Barry, or stuff? Sorry, I don't think you're asking like that.
I think there's always small issues that are popping up, but over the last 2 years that I've been here, we're certainly getting on top of some of the smaller ones and moving some of the problem areas into capital projects.
Yeah, because I do want to acknowledge the speed at which those things have been addressed. I mean, it is evident in your report here, but just past the past this thinking about kind of what are we doing kind of moving forward. It sounds like to me a hold or a sense of what's required moving forward. So yeah, that was my only thoughts in regards to this report.
Yeah, just on page 19, I just want a little bit of clarification on the page 19 that says updates since the last report. With the controllable operating expenditure, when we look at that operational, page 64, operational, is that basically capital works or that is programmed? Is that what we're talking about? And then you look at repairs and maintenance, 720,000. I'm looking at repairs and maintenance as being reactive maintenance, so we're almost looking at a 50-50 split there. The only thing I wanted to know, or if that is true, if that is basically operational as capital works, when we do a budget, we don't know what's coming. We don't know what maintenance is going to pop up in the middle of a road, pipe burst, or whatever. Is that repairs and maintenance? Is that taking away from capital expenditure budget, or like how do we actually budget for the unexpected? That's clarification.
So I'm not sure about the operational, what the difference between operational repairs and maintenance, but it's capital works is budgeted separately. So these ones aren't. That operation item isn't capital works.
So these are unbudgeted. So how do we account for that? Because they start getting quite big numbers.
They can easily be quite large numbers. Usually it's a trade-off with some other part of the program. And sometimes it's not always clear either when it's in this realm. There'll be often an interface with, say, roading team or other parts of the water team as well. But in terms of what is budgeted, it's really lean and it's not budgeted around unforeseens that are at any scale. Unforeseens of a garden variety in any one year are generally taken care of comfortably within the program. Anything larger than that would need to come back to council.
Questions on it? I've got a question on page 28 and 21 about the upgrade of stormwater network, resolve long-standing surface flooding issues at Roebuck Road and Glasson Road intersection, that roundabout there. Well, when we've had those really heavy downpours, those shops on the left are really vulnerable and the water flows over onto those. That's what's being addressed?
Yeah, so we have a design project at the moment, which is looking at that. And because Gisborne is so flat, it's not just a matter of dealing with what's happening at the roundabout, it's what's happening downstream as well. Yeah. So it's quite a large project, but we're proposing to deliver that in 2 stages, starting from this summer.
Right. Excellent. What has been the cause of that?
It's basically just the pipes are undersized.
Councillor
Thank you. On that same issue, I've heard talking to some local residents, they say that there's a quick fix option to be looked at there, and that is a pipe under Gladstone Road and send the excess water through. Has that been seriously looked at, or have you bypassed it for a more extensive option?
We have looked at that option.
I don't know if that's a really good question to ask, actually. It's very provocative.
Sorry, I'm not very good at rewording things. Are there any other options that you have looked at?
We've looked at about 4 or 5 options, including diverting into other catchments. We haven't just taken a pipe upgrade option.
All right, no more questions on and stormwater infrastructure and operations. We'll move on to the next, which is wastewater. Wastewater operations, and we'll do the infrastructure part of that as well.
So we're at 30.
We're at page, yep. Page 30, yes.
Yeah, I just noticed sort of, yeah, a lot of the waste is probably not really specific to this, but just an example on page 35, we spent 173, only of a 500k budget, and then it was carried through to the next year, and there's heaps of those all the way through. Are these budgets that we've planned, are these 2 or 3 year budgets, or have we not yet budget on so many things?
Well, one of the issues we've had is with several of these projects have had required consultation and agreements with landowners, and that's probably taken more than we have anticipated. But we're probably at the stage where we've resolved those issues, and where we can start construction starting from this summer.
So all those budgets were planned for that year time period. Okay, a massive amount of work.
Well, these are still relatively modest sized works if you compare it to a roading program. So there'll be more work, but as it's fallen, I think that assumption of getting approvals was optimistic at the outset, and hence we've had to pull our programs through to the following years. But the projects themselves are unchanged.
Yes, I'm thinking you've already got next year's planned work and budgets, and looking at this, the majority of the work, the big percentage, over 50%, is getting carried over to the next year. I'm just worried about the resources to actually complete it, because you've got your business as usual work plus over 50% of the previous year's work. So I'm just more looking at resource, and maybe are they going to jack the prices up because you're overcommitted?
I think we're keeping a good eye on the resource availability across the entire region, and anything that the recovery showed us is that there's quite a bit of elasticity in the market, particularly if you're pushing things to next year. And the scale of these particular jobs are not that market influential either. They're quite modest scale, so yeah, I think it'll have the impact at this point.
And just this more specific question, conflict with the project.
What page?
Page 36, street pipeline. So, yeah, that sort of blocked our driveway here, and introduced myself and stuff, and they said they'll be there for about a week, and they're probably there for maybe 3 months. There'll be a lot of issues. Cameras down our. Was there issues there that were unexpected, or were they always going to be for 3 months? Or?
Sorry, what number was that on?
Page 36, the pipelining. Page 36.
Yeah.
There's numbers everywhere.
What sentence are you referring to?
It just mentions the point 7, it mentions renewal program.
Oh, renewal program.
Yeah, and it mentions Whittaker Street and the renewals program. So I'm just wondering if we come across some serious issues there, or maybe it was always going to be 3 months and you should have told me a week.
It's probably the first stage of work was probably a week's work with the work, but they do come to the site, disestablish and come back with different different crews, depending on whether they're working on the road or the shelter houses. 3 months is probably a little bit too long, but there weren't any serious issues discovered. Some of the laterals were quite deep, so they took a little bit longer to dig down without making a huge hole in front of people's yards. So there was a little bit of time in managing those, but yeah, no serious issues.
Any other questions? I've got another question actually, just to do with our wastewater treatment plant and the ongoing saga with our tertiary filters. I mean, we're getting updated all the time, but we haven't had an update for a month or so. Has there been any other things coming through since our last kind of update? Because we do it on operations, we do it on our wastewater management committee as well. So yeah, it's great to kind of keep up to date with what's happening with our wastewater treatment plant and to finally get it all signed off. Yep. We've got this ongoing saga, which is a little bit niggly.
Well, I'll respond, and Aaron can jump in if I get it wrong. We've stabilised our wastewater treatment plant prior to the filters. That gives us grounds to properly review the filter's performance, because the conditions precedent for that piece of equipment are hence met. So that's the position we're at now, and we're working with the technology supplier of the filter within the knowledge of also the designer in that process, and that takes the time that it does. I can assure you we're going as quickly as we can, and we're addressing each of those parties carefully, knowing that there's a lot at stake. Us as requiring quality water requirements to be met, to the technology providers' interest in having their equipment working, and to holding the designers to appropriately account. So all of that we're juggling at one time, and then trying to keep everything bound together at the same time.
Yeah, great. The whole process would be a big learning curve about all the different items that are involved and how they contribute to the overall completion of the and the performance of the wastewater treatment plant. So probably a good learning curve of going into all different aspects of it in depth, like you are.
Not have a learning curve. Yes.
Yeah. Right. No more on wastewater. Okay, we're on to water supply, which is page 38. Water supply and infrastructure.
Take that as report read, and happy to answer the question.
Councillor Tova.
Just on page 39.6, just around the water sampling not being fully met, and it was due to the courier interruption for the Tairāwhiti supply. I'm just wondering that the courier has another sample sent straight away after, as soon as the courier were available, because that road wasn't closed for that many days. I'm wondering, just because it didn't get there on that day, was it still done? Because if it was, then it should fully be. I was just querying whether that was just let lie. That's all. 0.6 it was.
Yes, thank you for drawing attention to that. You know, I can get an answer for you on that. I imagine that there'd be a point in time where your sample would be invalidated. If there was a reason for it, it might not be necessary to provide it for comparative purposes. So I'll find out. We'll find out though. Councillor Telfer.
Yes, thanks. Just a little bit more on the dams. Where are we at with our risk profile of failure there, actually. And I mean, the increased scope of work is going to have a huge dollar figure associated with it. So are we at a point where it's getting quite critical? Or, yeah, just sums it up.
The Clapcot, right, is closed. Yeah. So the Sang Dam, we've received some early indications of potential remediation costs for that. They have a large amount of risk attached to those estimations, given the amount of information they have to build them up. So they're a sizable number, something like $4 million, right? So we're engaging some early contractor assistance to try and grasp a better handle on that potential expense for us. So in terms of risk, we've got a definite cost risk there. If we were to start works and unbeknownst inflate a number, if it's already a large number, it inflates it more. So that's a concern. The other concern is the Sang Dam forms part of our dry weather resilience. It's storage for water for the city, so it's of value. This will also take time, which is risk as well. With so much rain in recent years, I guess our minds could easily turn from drought, but that's potentially our largest enduring risk. So we think the risks are quite high here. We don't have a numeric answer for that at this point, though.
Yeah, I think we do need to work towards a numeric on that, because there is another opportunity out there. We'll probably need to do some comparison with that other opportunity, which is also going to have huge dollar amount attached to it.
Yes, and perhaps that's a dam as well. Yeah. We also have resilience capability with our Polo, and we're looking to, this summer, hopefully, in improving the intake for that plant to maintain that resiliency as well. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you for the whole report, Tim. I forgot to say it's, as usual, very informative and a lot of clarity there. And on page 38.1, you've been able to stay under budget on our water service delivery, as you say, despite increasing costs in traffic management, professional services, i.e. consultants, and materials and components. Just wondering, how do you plan to tackle these increased costs in the future?
I guess you could answer that generically at any time, anywhere, anyone in my role anywhere in the country. You try and limit the amount of advice you need at the appropriate level. Try and do the jobs which are most necessary and prioritise. Try to choose solutions which will endure. And all of those added up over time generally get a better outcome. We also look to get the right balance between what skills we have in-house and out. We know that we don't have the full complement of expertise and cannot have the full complement of expertise amongst all our infrastructure departments, and but knowing that is the main issue, and then so we look to partner with advisors, etc. So when we're talking contractors, and often they get a bad, there's a bad connotation attached to it. If you think of it as the expertise that fill the gaps that you don't have, and then what we try to do is the 95% of what we can do well, try and do ourselves, and then that 5% where you need something different level of experience, different abilities, then it can be really good value. So I look at those as value streams rather than costs. So if we've got contract consultants and contractors involved, we want them to be adding value by helping us enhance our decision making, by helping us get the designs right at the right point in time, by helping us administer contracts from time to time when we might not have that full complement of services. So getting that right balance, you never have that whole balance within an entity the size of ours with the scope of what we've got to do. So if you look at our job descriptions for general people in our businesses, they've got 7 or 8 things to look at. If you're in Auckland or Wellington, they've got 2 or 3. And they tend to get competencies around those which are arguably higher, but don't have the breadth of what we've got to do. So I see most of, and prices going north is just inflationary. It's not readily avoidable. And the other part of the equation as well, over time prices rise, and we've forecasted that. We've clearly done it with, this attains to local water done well. We've clearly put our expectations of the water rating element of our business growing over time. And that pulls in the general inflationary expectations we anticipate. Yeah.
Thank you. My next question's on point 6 also, around water sampling. Do we not have a local water sampler, a sample lab that can handle these figures?
We don't.
We don't.
And this is a longer term contract. It's Watercare Services, I think, and I don't have a conflict of interest, I don't work for them anymore, but they compete for this work nationally, and because they work at scale, they compare pretty well. It's through a procurement, they won the work.
Thank you. And then lastly, and to me it's a really scary area that we have yet to address, and the photographs of the trees on the banks of the Tairāwhiti, and we know that those trees fell in, and it was whole trees that took out the pipeline, and still those trees are standing right on the bank, right beside slips. Point 15 says on page 41, Tim, that you're going to be participating with a group in-house, I presume, to de-risk the water supply.
Yes.
My question is, who is this group within our house, and how do we prioritise this and get it to the where I believe it should be?
We agree this is a big risk for us. To put this in perspective, we lost our water supply line to our city in Gabrielle. Many of you will remember that very, very clearly. It is downstream of the photos you're looking at there. And those are sitting on the edge of the Tairāwhiti River. It's generally accepted that every bridge we lost, there was a contributing factor of debris building up on those bridges, whether they were bridges for roads or whether they were, in this case, pipe bridges. We've identified these as highly risky. Unfortunately, in risk mitigation of its own, the forestry operators in that area have elected not to remove those trees or go for consent to, and we don't have ways to compel them to do that either. So this burden has landed on council. How we intend to do that is work closely with the large woody debris group, plus landowners, plus our iwi partners who provide us access through to that area as well to try and manage this issue. We'd like to continue to try and partner with our forestry entities who operate that area, but they are running a very smart game in avoiding this obligation. They don't have legal obligation to do it, but ideally they would be doing it as part of the cost of putting their other land, but they've elected not to.
How much of land is involved there with those? How many hectares?
Sorry, I don't have hectares, but there's an awful lot of land up there, and I'm not sure, Councillor Gregory, if you've ever travelled up the Polo route, so you'll be aware of the steepness on each side, and I can get that area for you, but you don't need to lose very much of it to be a threat to our assets, would be my point. You don't need too much.
How do we find a solution?
Yes.
Supplementary, so Tim, do you agree with me that this is a very serious problem?
Yes.
Thank you.
Councillor Telfer.
Yeah, that was on the limelight. That was actually one of my questions. I'm just wondering, this is only one piece of the jigsaw puzzle. We've got land right up to the dams where we are in control of removing those trees. And I'm just wondering, due to what we had that meeting here the other day, there was a few councillors here with the forestry industry around the problems that they can see that they've got on getting consents to harvest some of this marginal land. I'm wondering whether we should be taking this really seriously, where we have actually got control over dealing with this land that we do own upstream, and getting these, de-risking these trees and getting this process going. And if we put a real emphasis on that, where we haven't got barriers being put up by other owners, we're in control of that one. I just think it should be a priority that we need to look at, really de-risking it and coming up with a way of showing how we can get these trees off this vulnerable land, red zone land, because that by default we are actually, there's a bigger risk because it does involve the pipeline. That's one area for a start that we could deal with, and then it can be shown that these other owners how we've done that. And I think that's, considering what else is going on with the whole 3B overlay land that we're dealing with.
Yeah, I would say this particular area is particularly acute for us. It's a known failure, and we know it might fail again. And would like Jocelyn to add something here. But firstly, I think where we do have access and control of land, we are having plans in place. When it's a third party, we're subject somewhat to what they'll let us do. But please, Jocelyn.
Yeah, sure. Thank you. Through Mr. Chair, thanks for bringing up the point around the consent conditions and some of the discussions we're having with the sector as of late, and in fact over the last 18 months. Many of the consent conditions that are really the center of discussion around some of the conversations around discharges or slash management, and certainly around that sedimentation stuff, have been are not new resource consent conditions. So we're going to continue to work on those, probably 4 to 6 central themes that that the sector and council need to agree upon or disagree upon ultimately. With regards to this conversation, Tim was right in that there's no way for the council to compel foresters or landowners to do work on their land if there wasn't the ability through regulation to do so. But also agree with you that it's quite timely we come together with the sector, continuing that conversation as we had the previous 18 months, and continue encouraging those discussions around the benefits of harvest consenting, and certainly I know the council are having discussions with the sector in terms of what they might be able to do, and through regulatory pathway, we will certainly.
Yeah, so it's, I guess from our perspective, it's a little bit disheartening to hear from the same sector who's demanding us to upgrade Wainaki Road for purposes yet are silent and active from removing our largest known threat from our infrastructure when the time comes to harvest. Same parties, identical parties.
But just supplementary, where I was coming from was we've actually got our own land up here, which we haven't had an update on where we are with to show of those last trees that have been left almost up there that are still to be harvested, which are by default some of the most difficult or moving land around the pipeline. So I'm just wondering, can we have an update on where we are with that, because that seems to be dragging on for too long.
We can get a specific update. I think the next ops meeting is months away, but
Just email it out.
yeah, I'll email. We'll give you an update. Thank you, Councillor Telfer.
Any more on water supply? We'll go to page 46, and that's roads and footpaths, page 46. And that's operations and infrastructure as well.
Sorry, 46.
Yep, page 46.
We have both Libby and Dave here, so take the document as read and welcome any questions. Thank you.
Councillor Telfer.
Yeah, it's on page 47.
47?
47, 45. Just around the, and going down to the graph there, just around the pothole repair, I find it quite hard to believe that we have got a level of service time frame there, and go to the repaired, and within the level of service time frame, we're all sitting at 100% repaired, and I don't know, the roads that I drive on regularly, potholes certainly are a lot longer than that. So I just, can I have a clarification on that, or am I reading it wrong?
Through you, Chair. This target of 1 hour was driven through ministerial requirements, which was imposed on council after the LTP was developed, budgeted for and endorsed. So the reporting I've put in here is to provide visibility for you of what we find and fix on the network, and what has been done in the network. It also isn't exclusive to sealed roads, it includes unsealed roads, which we do unsealed road potholing in lieu of grading where appropriate, particularly over the winter months when we do not want to cut pavements that do not have enough aggregate on them, and we'll just turn them to mud. So the numbers do look odd, and that is due to the constraints we have around the reporting template and the clarity we have on that reporting. I understand they are reviewing what the criteria is to constrain it to high volume roads. So an example there of primary collector, we've got some Polo, Topatu, Wharepara, that's all unsealed, that is classified as primary collector. It's not just exclusive to the city network.
Thank you. Also on potholes, I've reported heat on antenna. It's fantastic, works really well. They all get fixed and no complaints there. Often people will say, oh, you know, the council haven't fixed this pothole, but the council may not even know that it exists because it, unless someone is reporting it. But I did ask in regional transport, just with regards to repeat potholes, and just wondering, maybe we were going to get a report on that. Yeah, in operations. Just whether or not, like some of the potholes that I come across, I've reported 3 times. And they've been fixed, but they come back because obviously there's an underlying problem. When does someone say, oh, well, we did not, you know, when does it become an opportunity to fix the underlying problem and stop wasting money fixing the potholes several times?
Through you, Chair, yes, pothole repairs are not a permanent measure. We acknowledge that, particularly when there's underlying fault causes. During winter, the approach is to pothole them until such time we can come back and do the best practice repair. We use all that intelligence to develop our annual work programs, which in the process, in the next 2 to 3 weeks, will be getting finalised.
Cool, thanks.
Yeah, just a supplementary to that. So what happens is that Libby's team sometimes just has to hold the network as best as we can until the renewal team. So like Hilda's Road, there's been some, from last year, a lot of it looks patchwork. Then we've got our reseal program this year. We just, and there's still some other work, like some of the manholes have to be raised, but that's holding it until she's trying to use as least money as possible and waiting for the renewal team to come in and fix it. So it's a bit of a balancing act as well.
Cool, thank you.
Councillor Cranston.
Yeah, thanks for that. At last infrastructure meeting, there was a statement saying about the closure of the Uawa cycle and walkway, and a follow-up from that was the deputation we had from Uawa, from Bessie and Greg. And since that presentation, I've been getting quite a phone calls from Uawa saying, can we please clarify the status of that, because we're concerned that the status is closure. We want some definition, some definite statements around the status of that.
Through you, Chair, in terms of the current maintenance of the existing network, we are delivering the permitted maintenance work to the total scheme. We are aware of faults that require capital work. The council did apply for funds to do capital work, and it has not been supported, particularly the river erosion work. So at the moment we're just maintaining what we have, but there is no pipeline to do the reinstatement of the areas that have suffered from slumping into the river. With relation to the fencing of a section on recovery, Dave, have you got?
No, I haven't, because part of it also through the chair is when we gave a presentation when we actually applied for over $1 million worth of, we call it walking and cycling, but it was also, you know, a lot of CVD papers. That actually got reduced quite dramatically. We did a report. So what the team are having to try and do is manage that reduction from close to $1 million to about 500, and that includes footpath repairs as well. So some of that is we're trying to manage that, and also it's where most people are walking, so that's where we're spending a lot of money on footpath repair. So and this is what I think we were chatting as well, is that when the government talked about walking and cycling, we think the walking component, which is our footpaths, got kind of muddled into that conversation, and we need to go back to the government and say, you know, footpaths are important infrastructure. Then they don't get them into the walking and cycling component. So that's something we've got to manage.
So what is the message that goes back to Oahu? This confusion.
Yeah, so with the short section, so there is maintenance happening, but as Libby has referred to, it is status quo, so there is no funding, as I understand it. With the section that's closed, that is in the reserve, which is a contaminated site, and we are currently working on a resource consent to remediate the contamination, which will then remediate the site, and then we'll be in a position to reopen that section of the road.
Through our walking and cycling program lead, we're really happy to develop a in partnership with the community. We had a bit of an internal discussion about that and happy to drive that forward. So working closely with them on that, and that may give us some other chances for funding and for potentially giving some of that capital work done that maybe we can't achieve ourselves. So that's the plan at the moment.
Can I ask that some messaging does go back to Ruawa? I'll take them because I am getting regular emails and phone calls.
So, just for another supplement, we probably, as a team, have to rethink, like at Tukumura Bay, there was all the playground equipment that was in the front that got wiped out by coastal erosion. The Waitu footbridge got wiped out by coastal and sea change. We've got this component. So it's just, we really need to think about where we, in that coastal area, how we manage putting infrastructure in there. I think there's a lot about the 2-hour toilets as well. It's all in those vulnerable areas.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for the report. It's good to have this sort of thing and the maintenance schedules on hand when someone questions you about when a road's going to get fixed. So thank you for the detail there. On page 50, the paragraph starting staff and contractors are still validating the high lip removal program. So again, no, you've got better than that. I'm sure it is well known that a high lip on a road is probably the most contributing factor to a pothole forming. It's probably also the single most easiest thing to fix because all you've got to do is flick it away. The question is, what does field validating mean, and what are we doing there?
So what we've gone like the Poverty Bay Flats, and it's removing that area, but there's also people who actually look after their verges. So what we did last time was we went through and cut their nice verge and caused a lot of customer complaints. And so we've just got to manage that. So what we've done is these sites outside people's properties, if we go along there, we're going to get some complaints, and we just have to get that messaging right. So it's just highlighting that. So it's easy just to go through. In other areas, we're going to actually have to go to the drain. So it's just not a... So what we do is we've got a tractor that just has a blade that just cuts. But in some areas, we're going to have to bring a digger in and actually remove potentially up to 3 metres of that verge to get the water to run off to the nearest drain. So that's what we're doing.
Right. Yeah. It needs to be done on all our roads, and I think we should also put the pressure on Waka to do it with their state highways, because they've got the same problem. And feel sorry for the people's lawns, but do they want to pay for the pothole that forms?
I know. It's just managing that. I mean, because it does, because they can see that bit of lawn is theirs, and you're right. What else would we do?
Right. Moving on. Okay, we've got another part, which is not. This part. It's not mean it's a summary of recovery measures and
that was it.
Surfway.
Yeah, it's just targeted at our contractors. They have a meeting every quarter, and they just like an update. But what feedback they said to us is we actually don't want what's actually committed into our maintenance contracts. They just want to know what's coming to the market. So that's what it was. It was just to give them an idea that this is the work, this is what's going to get tendered, and things like that.
So it's really nicely summarised in that last graph. And the last graph essentially shows a drop to roughly about a fifth of what we'll be spending this. The question was, the statement really was given, get yourself in shape, because that's what we're going to be returning to. And this summer will be the most heaviest amount of work done in the region, in memory probably. So, but following that, it drops off a cliff, essentially. That's really important messaging, because we need our suppliers to be in the right shape, to be the right partners to look after the roads, to take care of the things. Talking about getting the lips off the sides of the road. It's not going to be large, massive capital works. It's not going to be over multi-million-dollar contracts. It'll be down to down to the decimal points, guys. So Dave did a real great thing, taking this to the civil contractors of New Zealand and explaining this to them. We're going to have to do this half a dozen times for it to land, but we'd like them to make really good decisions based on the future work expectations for the area. We reliably have amount of emergency works that happen. I don't really want to mention it if that increases the chance of it happening, but typically that tracks around about 15% on top of what we'd expect in BAU work in normal years. And then Gabrielle was a massive outlier, but we want to tie that work also into ability to do the small stuff really well. It also means that economic activity is coming out of our region at that point in time. You know, this summer, I mean, almost all that work's happening in region, that work. So it's fantasy when people say, oh, it's all going to outside contractors, because it's actually all happening here, mostly. The larger works, this recovery this year, however, are going to be more specialised because there's going to be some bridge works and more complex dropouts that will have some contractors from out of region, but still most of the work will be happening locally. Same is true of our colleagues at EPTA.
Councillor Order. Councillor Telfer, sorry. You have got a bit more.
Twins. Thanks. I think this is an interesting graph, like you said, and I think it's a really interesting time we're in, and I would have loved we discussed this in Regional Transport Committee, and we were basically told that this is operations to be, you know, through operations, and what it was the ability for us around the table to have a really good workshop these upcoming contract renewals, which are 2027. Now 2027 comes around pretty quick. The work that needs to be done prior to that around, are our contracts fit for purpose? Are they delivering what we require? And I'd love to have had a workshop while this council is here. Unfortunately, we're going to run out of time. But I'd like it to be brought onto the agenda for, you know, as soon as we possibly can, because I think the sooner we start having these conversations around what do we want our contracts for this district looking like going forward, and considering what's coming, and like you said, unless we have another major weather event that upsets the apple cart, but I think it's really timely that we get onto that sooner rather than later. Yeah.
Thank you for that, Councillor Telfer. We have that in plan. A big step of it happened a week ago, last week's council meeting, getting the strategic roading network business case up. This is all incorporated in that, and will include in-depth engagement on an awful lot of issues. And contracts are a big part of it, admittedly. There are other elements as well. But certainly we'll be happy to move workshop into the new council term at an appropriate time. I think our first interaction will be addressing the needs of any new councillors that might come on board to the condition, and then after that move to that. The ability of the market to engage with us will increase as the market conditions change, and we're anticipating that as well. So the time for those conversations are being timed as well around the ability or the effectiveness of that message will fall at a particular time that won't fall if we set it tomorrow. When you stop tendering, the message falls.
Yeah, just as long as it becomes a bit of a priority, because 2027 comes along.
It does.
If we look at a new council, we get through till, you know, we closed Christmas, January, we're into February, trying to get councillors up to speed with what's happened in the past and conversations. It all takes time. So we'll start looking at the middle of next year. Well, that's the middle of 2026. So I think it just needs to be a priority, even to have that conversation, see what falls out of it.
Well, we're intensely thinking about that right now, and the flavour of that, I think, was passed over with the strategic business case work, and some of the comments today are even consistent with where our focus is heading towards. We don't think it's going to be that complex. I think it's going to be a lot of simple stuff.
I'm happy to move this paper. We have thrashed it.
Second.
Okay, we'll move on to the next part. All those in favour?
Aye.
Carried. All right, we'll move on to page 62, Transport Rebuild East Coast Update, and we welcome Richard.
Yeah, we've had some good progress over the last few months, even through winter. So we do have some movement in the numbers. We'll be looking at today. So we've actually moved on a bit since we sent this out. We're sitting at 88% complete now in Tairāwhiti. Got a little bit of movement in the bottom sticks there. The large projects are kicking off in quite a big way, with the Hikawai Bridge, Mangahawini, Hakanui Street and Taruheru works. We are getting to the point now where a lot of our other sites are starting to come to completion over the next 6 months. And we have those big sites remaining to take us through to the markets. So we're continuing to evolve in line with the program delivery and to match that need. We are working through the process with NZGTTM implementation, and we'll be over the next little while as the NZTA maintenance moves through there first. So Hakanui Strait, works are progressing well. The guys are starting to really make progress there, and you'll start to see a lot more activity in the coming few weeks as you go past. The enabling works is almost complete, and some of the drainage package will start to get underway shortly. That's the bit of work where we're putting in the new culverts. So there's 3 big culverts to go in there, one on the Hakanui stream and 2 others to allow water to flow and equalise pressure on each side of the on the road there during flood events.
Is that house staying there?
Yeah, that house was above the cyclone gate.
Was above, oh, okay, yeah.
It's currently our site office.
That looks like our first motorway.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah, so yeah, it's an exciting project to get underway, and it's a team of champions. So yeah, it's on track for completion mid-2026. Rotatahi, whereas Hakanui is lifting the road by about 3 metres, at Rotatahi here where it's about, just under a metre at 850 mils. Again, upgrading culverts to convey the flood waters across the road without going over the road. We're in a good spot with resource consent granted. We've got our contractors all lined up, and we'll be able to start work in the next month. Yeah. So yeah, that'll be quite a big one for us because it'll reduce the number of closures we have on that section by a significant amount and allow us better to operate from a maintenance perspective, how we can move resources around the coast during weather events, but also, you know, it's a big one for civil defence about how they move resources too. I'll start with 35 Hikawai Bridge. Again, that we're progressing well. We've made the switch over to the temporary road on the approach to the Bailey Bridge from the Polo Bayside, and that's just to give us some more elbow room for construction. So over the coming weeks, you'll start to see a bit of mobilisation of equipment there. Steel casing is now in the country. We did have a small delay there. And our contractor for all of that works, we've got a preferred supplier. We're just working through final details with. So the next bit of work that you'll start to see is some mobilisation of some of the heavy equipment, and some of that work start to get underway with piling. It's a bit of a unique bridge. This on the surface, it's a pretty straightforward structure, quite similar to other structures that we've built around the country in the last few years. Quite similar to the one up in the Coromandel that was built post-cyclone on the surface, but once you get under the ground, it's a bit of a different beast. Where we have, on the northern abutment, we've got piles that go down about 14 metres before they hit the mudstone through the silt. On the southern abutment, the piles are around about 50 metres. Until through 50 metres, or 47 metres of silt, and we've got a few metres of embedment into the. So it's a little bit more complex underground than on the surface. So we've got like an old historic cliff face that runs right down the middle of the bridge where the river is working with. So it's a lot of the reason why we've not quite got things underway sooner. But again, we're on track for completion until next year. And we've also been doing some work with a few of the local schools up there on how the bridge will be constructed, and we'll hope to have some other opportunities for them to be in.
Expensive bridges on the coast.
Yep.
50 metres, so is that steel?
Yep. So steel casings, they come in sections, they get driven in, welded together. Steel. And then the steel casing comes to the surface, and the bit above the surface is just concrete. And from that point on, it's a lot more straightforward. Mangahueni Gorge, enabling works underway there to get all the access in place. I think the vegetation package is underway, or about to get underway, to remove some trees that are sort of in the way of some of the works there. We're again on track for mid next year. Procurement's well advanced. We've got some of our packages just working through final details, and a few more still to come. But most of the procurement has taken place. We have some bat monitoring and stuff, and ecological controls on place for tree removal and throughout the project, because we are working in the riverbed. But we have all those consents in place through the Watering Council, and there's a lot of work to get through the next year, but we're confident we'll be able to. River grade control, it's part of the wider Mangahueni package. The Mangahueni Gorge is actually, it's not a single project, it's a program of a series of projects through that section. The majority of that cost is in the section affected by the landslide. So most of the smaller work will be, but there's these other little smaller pieces of work further up and one to the south. So there's some existing structures and work that was that were already in the river there, and there's also some work that was done immediately after the cyclone to get the road open that needed a bit more strengthening to ensure that the work that has been done will stay in place. long term. So yeah, it's all part of that same package of work that we've undertaken through there. So all the wider update for Stateway 35, the site's underway. We've got work at Polo, slip 1, which is the shotcrete, sword anchor wall, that's nearing completion. Tōrere underslip and overslip, that'll take us through closer to Christmas over in the Bay Plenty. Parango D9, that's well underway with repairs there to get that back to 2 lanes. Maungahoini Avian wall is well advanced, and Kemps Hill is ongoing too. We've got one more site to do there as well. Tairāwhiti Bridge, there's a couple of different packages of work on that bridge. Structural stuff is underway, almost complete, and then there's a couple more in the upcoming year. One around erosion protection, or putting back in the erosion protection, and the other some work on the abutment. And then Makototi dropout number 2, just south of Ruatoria there, is nearing completion also. So upcoming, we've got the 2 packages on the Tairāwhiti Bridge over the Waipu River, Maraihara underslips, Ruawa River Scour just north of Tonga Bay there, Kuparoa, some more work on that site, some drainage improvements. We've got a couple of replacements to do there, and then some more drainage work on D9 Parango also. So we're hoping most of this works will be complete by Christmas or close to it, and then yeah, we're just focused on those bigger projects. There are some sites such as Kuparoa where we've got a seal. We've got that section back to 2 lane for the first time since the cyclone. I think if we look back over the last 10 to 15 years, we've probably only held that at 2 lanes for very short periods before it's moved again. So we're hopeful that this time we'll be able to hold it for much longer periods. There is still global instability on that hill that we can't fully address. So it will be still an area that will have some activity, but it should be much reduced, and we'll be holding that for 2 lanes for as long as we possibly can. So yeah, and some of this extra drainage work through there will help support that to maybe slow and minimise some of the movement. That site there, we've also got we've put holding seals on some of our works over winter that we've done, because obviously winter's not an ideal time to be doing that pavement work. So then in the spring we'll go back in and we'll rework that pavement. So we've got 3 or 4 sites that are like that sealed over the last few months. Stateway 2 recovery. Latoka Hill is getting close to completion. We've just got 2 sites left there, sites M and K. K is underway, M's just getting started. There we go. And we've also got the Marawa Road overslip, which is just Katiratahi Hill there. That's also nearing completion. So again, we're on track for those to be complete by Christmas, and we've just recently pointed out a couple of sites on Latoka Hill too, and Karakia, which is a bit further to the north. So yeah, again by Christmas on Stateway 2, in Tairāwhiti will only have Hakanui Strait remaining. So yeah, some good progress there. Yeah, great progress. We're continuing with our comms and connecting and engaging with the communities. We've got a couple of signboards up on the coast now at some visible locations. So we're helping inform the community of some of the works going on, so you might see them on your travels. We're also working with a few schools, and we'll continue to the Rural Roadshow alongside council. So yeah, that's what we're here for. If there's any questions.
Yeah, thank you so much, Richard. That's great. A lot of work, so much work, most ever.
Annie has her hand up online.
Annie
has her hand up online.
Kia ora koutou. Thank you. Thanks, Richard, for the presentation. really, you can see a lot of the work that's being done. Thank you for explaining Mangahoani, because we've been, as I drove over there, I'm wondering what's going on here. So it's good to have that explained. And also to see at the end there your engagement with community, those posters. It would be great to have some of those. I'm not sure where you put them, but it would be great to have some of those north of Rotoria or north of Tokomaru, for those of us that travel the road regularly, to see those. Also, just the spelling with Roto Kautuku, it's R-O-T-O, not R-O-K-O. So Roto Kautuku, and D9. What is the that road is terrible, has been for decades. What's the long-term solution there? It's constantly slipping, which I've reported into NZTA. The solutions that you've come up with thus far don't last very long at all. I hate to think about how much dollars has actually gone into temporary solutions. Is there a long-term plan for a more permanent fix? D9. And there are other. Yeah, you go.
The worst part of D9 right up the summit there is an area that's it's very difficult to repair. It's the top of a large landslide the road sits on. That whole hillside is moving. When we looked at it and the Trek team modelled it, the landslide's about 1.7 kilometres from the top to the bottom. The road sits on the very top of that landslide, so you can't control it from within the road reserve. So it's a very difficult one to work with. We have a few similar sites, but that's one of the trickiest, where it's a whole hillside from the into the stream at the bottom that is active and moving. We've got a road across it. There's not really anywhere better to put a road up there, but it's what we're having to work through. Those drainage improvements will make a little bit of a difference. Ultimately, we'll be also looking at what other drainage stuff outside of the road reserve may be required. But that's one of the biggest questions that what the future lies there.
Any other questions for Richard?
I just had a comment. I worked up in Ruatoria yesterday, and there's an absolute buzz up the coast. As you go through, the whole building around the Hikawai number 1 bridge, that's like you're driving into a new city nearly. Everything is happening there. And then also Kopuarua, that has been in states of decline and then a little bit of improvement, but it's really semi-decent now. And the Mangahouni, lots happening there over time. So just a kudos. Usually when I'm on Radio Ngāti Porou, I do get a bit of feedback on what's happening, but there were no grizzles at all. So ka pai.
Okay, no questions? Annie.
Sorry, I just wanted to reiterate what Rehet's just said, but also to thank the Trek staff for attending the rural support roadshows, to be there to answer questions that the communities have about what's happening on the state highway. So, and also around stock control, or that was with the NZTA. So that's been a big issue for us up here, along the coast. So thank you, just big mahi to your team.
Thanks, Arnie. We'll continue to attend them, and like you say, the last ones, there was some really good feedback and discussions that occurred there.
Okay, moved by Councillor Gregory, seconded by Councillor Tauwha. All those in favour? Aye. Thank you so much, Richard. Yeah, much appreciated. Great work going on. Awesome work. Okay, we'll go to page 74, our recovery update.
ora koutou. Tēnā koutou katoa, kei te mihi ki ngā mema o Kaunihira, nō reira tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou katoa. Hirio ko Ngāti Porou, ko Ngāpuhi, ko Ngāti Kahu ki Whangaroa, ko Nau Mai Awau. Warm greetings to the members of Council. My name is Nau Mai, and I'm here to talk to you about the recovery program. I've sat before you in the past as Regional Director for Kāinga Ora, Regional Director for Ministry of Social Development. I've also held the designation as Regional Public Service Commissioner after Cyclone Gabrielle for a year. So I'm very pleased to be sitting here now as an employee of the Council. I'm sitting in the Recovery Manager role. I started in Easter, so be nice to me. I'm here to give you a recovery update. And we've utilised this committee to be able to bring the update to you all. I think it's also a great opportunity just to take pause and reflect on the great work that's happened, the decisions that have been made by the Council, and the work that's been undertaken by staff with iwi, with mana whenua and with communities so far. So you have a report that was put in your papers, and I've also got a presentation to take you through, just to take the edge off the running narrative that you have in that report that was provided. That's okay, Mr. Chair? Sure. Yes. We're nearly 2 years into the recovery program. There's some key highlights, and for someone that's new but also familiar with the mahi that's been undertaken, there's some great celebrations to share with you. So there's been some great progress through the FOSL program. There's some major infrastructure projects that are about to be undertaken, plus quite a lot of infrastructure work that has been completed. There's been a new contract awarded through the Ministry of Primary Industries for the large woody debris program. We've got some leading edge flood intelligence work that's occurred by the Gisborne District Council team over time that's been seen as best practice nationwide. And then as the Council, you've also been able to make some decisions around flood resilience, modelling and some options for rural communities. Just to go through some of the infrastructure projects, and then we'll just go a little wider and not take up too much of your time around that. As you would have heard from Tim earlier, and through the rest of the team, we've got 4 key infrastructure repair programs. There's 245 million provided through the Crown to support that work, 111 million for bridge repairs. We've got bridge rebuild starting this September on St. Leger, followed by Mata in November, Grays and Pawariki in early 2026, and Burgess Bridge is still pending funding. Bridge repairs, we've got more than 60% of bridge repairs are complete, with nearly all procurement complete. $52 million in slips and dropouts, 240 non-complex sites completed since November last year. Construction on 95 complex dropout starts next month and will continue to early 2027. It's $45 million for Tiniroto Road. The first look at designs are available. I'm just assuming you've seen the video. If not, we can get that to you. I know that you'll be waiting for lunch, so we won't play that today. And we've also got $37 million for iwi and community prioritised projects. And these are projects that are prioritised for iwi. More than 200 non-complex drainage sites are completed. There's work underway on Waipiro Road, and more than $3 million of drainage work is out to market for major upgrades on Rangitukia, Anaura, Kukuaroa, Riporoa, Tapuairoa, Waiomatatini, among others. There's complex investigations and engagement underway for repairs for Tokomaru Bay Seawall, Coates Corner and Wharaturu, amongst others. So we lost 8 bridges in Gabrielle, more than 100 bridges were damaged. The bridge repair program is set up in this way through black bridges, red and orange bridges and our green bridges. The bridge repair program's made huge progress through a very productive bridge repair panel of contractors.
I'm excited about having all 4 bridge rebuilds under construction at the same time. So each bridge rebuild will take an average of 1 year and will be tendered to the open market. We're now at the resource consent application stage for Mata, Greys and Pawariki. Here's some pictures for you around the bridge repairs. So example of works that have been involved in the program. The bottom left photo is the Makareka Bridge, which is one of the largest repairs we have, and this has included a Bailey Bridge, while repairs take place to rebuild the abutment. Bottom right is the dropout in Lebanon Road. This road was eroding into the river. This has been a complex dropout involving tiebacks into the hillside. Both those projects will be completed in the next coming weeks. There's the green minor bridge repairs. And that's your St. Leger's flyover video, which I won't leave that on today. And then there's also a AI flyover for the new proposed bypass to Tiniroto.
That was a fast fly.
Do you want to see it?
Yeah.
Okay. Not that hungry. Now my IT illiteracy is going to be tested here. Do you also know how I can play this?
Jules to the rescue.
Jules to the rescue.
Thanks, Victor.
Choose.
This is exactly what I was thinking.
Functions are coming with the Waipiro Bay Road, that is one of our community, iwi community partnership projects that's now underway. And then flood resilience. Is the flood team presenting at all today, Tim? Separate to this?
No, they're not.
So with flood resilience, as you know, the Tikaraka Flood Resilience Project is now progressing to the next stages of detailed consent. And then the East Coast and Te Arai projects are still in the investigation stage, with the team working with the community groups to narrow shortlist options for preferred options. And then Gisborne City, that work's underway, and there's ongoing discussions with NZTA and how we partner with the Gisborne City requirements. But Tikaraka has been the priority project in terms of the Rivers teams progressing that forward. The flood resilience work, particularly for Tikaraka, the funding that's available through the Crown investment package is probably only half of what we require with the model that's now been agreed to. Council is working with the Crown around what our funding strategy will be for that particular project. Community flood focus groups are in place for the East Coast areas, and the key milestone is actually getting a decision made on the preferred option for Tikaraka. Flood intelligence, like I said earlier, this is a great news story. We received 1.2 million in funding from the Crown to enhance our flood resilience for the region. This project is the replacement of a legacy flood forecasting system. with a modern updated system that uses new catchment models hosted within a particular platform. It's called DELT FEWS, and I have no idea what that stands for. But anyway, the system will go operational in 2026. This particular platform is used internationally. It's subject to continuous reviews and improvements, meaning council will benefit from those advancements in the future. The improving resilience at the two critical flood warning sites, the Waipawa at Kanakanaya and the Waimata River at Goodwin Road Bridge, has been completed. The project also allowed for the installation of 5 groundwater monitoring bores in the city to better understand our flooding levels. Other deliverables include new water level sensors, enhancements to comms in the radio network, a new generator and additional field kits to assist in the collection of data. This particular piece of work is a great success story. The work that the Gisborne team have undertaken and been able to implement here has also been seen as best practice across the nation, and they're often being reached out to in terms of what they've achieved here. So just like to acknowledge that. Woody debris. So there's been a total of around 56 million cubic metres.
56,000 cubic metres.
567,000 metres.
See, people need lunch, no mai.
That has been done within a funding package of around $50 million. We've now received a new funding package of $27 million. That funding package, Gisborne District Council administers that funding package under the guidance and leadership of the Tairāwhiti Forestry Action Group. This funding will allow Gisborne District Council and the sector to open up funding to new contractors through the tendering process. There's been a great piece of work using AI in terms of understanding where woody debris is across the region, and that piece of work's nearly complete. There's a heat map that's been developed across our forests in terms of being able to find and demonstrate high-risk areas. Work with forest companies on removing woody debris behind the forest gate that may mobilise into our waterways is underway, and that will involve the funding agreement that will be supported through the Tairāwhiti Forest Action Group. There's going to be, in this next iteration, there's going to be a focus of kilometres of rivers that need to be de-risked with a priority behind the forest gates, and the Te Arai and the Waimata are the priority areas to begin with. As funding allows, we will continue into other priority areas that have been developed through a prioritisation framework. So just a couple of areas that are not infrastructure related, just to give you a sense of the full recovery program. So community-led recovery plans were brought together. There were 23 plans that were shared with council. Those plans were funded through some investment that came from MSD via Manaaki Tairāwhiti. So council were able to offer each community some pūtea to develop their plans. These plans are utilised in various ways, but led by communities how they want them utilised. But some of these plans do provide great intel and direction within council and across the wider sector. And there's been quite a bit of money that has been provided through the Mirror Relief Fund to help support some of the activities in those plans. That work is ongoing. There are 18 of the 23 plans that have now been transitioned over to the Community Engagement Partnerships team, and then some of those plans also sit with various officers within council as well. Some of the themes that come out of those plans: preparedness for future emergency events, support in terms of the environment, obviously repairs and resilience for the infrastructure for those communities, community facilities and initiatives, hauora and health, and economic opportunities. So So FOSL, so the Category 3 and the Cat 2P process, just to give you a bit of an update around that area here. So this is the area that I've probably spent most of my time in, as well as working with the Crown to manage the relationship and the requirements on council through the investment that they've brought into the region. So Category 3, that's the voluntary buyout process. There have been 73 Category 3 properties that have received investment of some form, either from Gisborne District Council or through the Whenua Māori investment that was handled through the Cyclone Recovery Unit. 91% of the properties that Gisborne District Council have been dealing with have been settled, and at this point we have 5 properties left. 4 of those properties have all accepted the settlement offers, and there will be 1 property that at this stage has not brought into the process. So I'm pleased to say at the end of September, so we received an extension to continue with the Category 3 buyout process till the end of September. We will have 52 properties that have received support from Gisborne District Council and the Crown in terms of that voluntary buyout. Following the buyout process, we're now into the demolition or relocation process of that program. There has been individual sites that have already been demolished, and probably the next site that will that we're going to focus on is the site across the road here, the Vogel Street precinct, and that is about to get underway. Category 2P or mitigation Tairāwhiti. So just a reminder that this was the voluntary process to enable homeowners that have had their properties categorised where there is a risk to life but an ability to egress to mitigate their property either through lifting the property or stabilising the land. This particular program has been and is challenging, but we do have a number of property owners that have mitigated and have had the categorisation lifted off their title. We do have a number of homeowners that are working through the process, they're actively in the process. But we do have a small number of homeowners that are at risk of not completing in time, and in time is the end of December, or the costs are too high for them to mitigate, or they've chosen not to mitigate. And so Gisborne District Council with the Crown are working in depth around how to find some solutions for those particular situations. One of the solutions that the Crown has enabled, there is an average cap in terms of the grant that is offered to the homeowner. So GDC basically administer a Crown grant, you make that available to the homeowner. They've been able to lift the average cap on that grant. So at the discretion of the Chief Executive, she can consider a special circumstance for a homeowner where they may need a bit more funding to enable them to mitigate and remove that categorisation off their title. We have not had any of those situations considered yet, but that is something that we're working through. The total investment for that program was 15 million. You may recall 10 million of that is currently accessible by the Gisborne District Council for homeowners. The remainder is being utilised through the Toitu Housing Limited team, who also support around about 40 homeowners to lift their property. So just to sum up, in terms of offering that pause and reflection of what you've achieved and what the team at the council have achieved to date, along with the community and along with iwi, we do have people back in their homes. There's been massive progress in terms of flood intelligence and flood resilience options. A massive work program in terms of the infrastructure program, restoration of roads, bridges, delivery on community-led planning, obviously and definitely strengthen local networks. We certainly have an increased culture and awareness around disaster preparedness and awareness, but there is still a lot of work to do. I'd just like to invite any questions.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Nan. Very informative, and so much work going on in that recovery space, and we're only halfway through that recovery plan, so much work to do. Councillor Thompson.
Yeah, thanks for the report. So quite a lot of stuff covered in that. You're just reading through it on page 74. It says with the woody debris, we're 95. Debris. Yeah, $95 a cube. Just thinking to myself, is that good or? And then I sort of just Googled firewood Gisborne, and you can get a cube of firewood delivered. They've got to cut it up, split it, deliver it to your property for $80 a cube. So, and then I'm just thinking, oh, they've got big machines, big trucks on the beach. They're moving a lot of cubes a day. I'm just, is that a good rate? It just seems to a cube of firewood, it's
Thank you, Councillor Thompson. That I cannot answer, but I can find out, because I think that's a very good question. So I can find out whether there are comparisons around whether that rate is reasonable or not.
Yeah, that's what I was sort of thinking, like, yeah, the other towns who have done similar.
I'll find that out for you.
And then just on the Cat 3 homes, I've just got a few questions there. Yeah, I had a couple mates up in Auckland, out West Auckland, who were involved in the Cat 3 homes. One had a wedding venue, so he just built this immaculate, he had his 50th there. It was after the event, and it's immaculate, and it's, what a waste, multi-million-dollar property, what a waste to demolish this. And he goes, yeah, it's never flooded before, and might not flood for 20 years, but he'd, it was classed as Cat 3 and being brought out, and how they did it up there was they tendered the properties. So the tenderer paid a significant amount of money for this property, and they would have taken out the joinery and everything else, but that money went to council because this guy had been paid out anyway. And there's another one on a hill area out west also, where he wasn't allowed to live in his house. And they put in some huge retaining walls and saved a heap of the properties, and he's moved back into that property now. I suppose my questions are, my understanding is we got $30 million, 15 million government, 15 million council, which was a 10-year interest-free loan. So how many houses, because I know up in Auckland, a number of Cat 3 houses payouts reduced significantly, retaining walls, etc. I'm just wondering how many houses originally in our Cat 3 in Gisborne?
It's gone up. It's gone up by a very small handful. So from the original numbers.
Did we get additional money from council for that?
No, but we have been working within the amount of money that was given by the Crown. However...
So that would be 100% on rate payers, not 50-50, those additional...
No, 50-50 still. So what the Crown does is, so the $30 million package, and Pauline can jump in here if I go off track, the $30 million package is the amount of funding that we've had to work to, and we have to follow the 50-50 formula. So if it was going to cost us 100k to buy you out, it's still 50% of the Crown funding, 50% of the GDC contribution. So every Cat 3 voluntary buyout stays within that formula. We've been able to stay within the 30 million to date. We have now slightly exceeded that budget, and we are in discussions with the Crown around how we can utilise the full Crown package to be able to support homeowners in that.
I suppose, like, so that 30 mil was based on how many houses originally?
I don't know.
How many additional houses have we added?
I think we've added about 5 additional homes.
So five additional homes, so that's
So the original
additional
30, the original 30 million wouldn't have taken into account any tax-related costs that could come off that total amount, any insurance payouts. So the original total amount would have been an assumption of forecasts, and the actual figures that are coming through have meant that because the district councils work within the budget.
So that 30 mil doesn't include those 5 additional homes that wasn't budgeted for in that 30 million?
No, they weren't budgeted for, but some of them have been able to be included in that 30 million.
Within the budget, within the package.
Yeah, but that we got that 30 mil.
We haven't surpassed the 30 mil.
So those additional houses.
We haven't surpassed that 30 mil, so I'm not quite sure where you're taking this.
That's what I'm saying. We got that 30 mil based on this number of houses, and then we've received these additional 5 houses, which weren't budgeted for. So that's.
So there's been insurance claims and all that kind of stuff. Yeah. Pauline.
When we were in negotiations with Treasury, it was a very high level. It took us a long time to be able to assess the properties, whether they were Category 3 or not, or the extended period with some of these properties related back to the Gabrielle took a number of time. So the actual, it's not unbudgeted, it was at a forecast of where we believe we were and what the cost would be under that $30 million.
So we took into account we're probably going to have more come into.
Yeah, there were. We realised that we were under, and the original ones were significantly within under those things. But we also realised that we hadn't finished all of the assessments, and that was going to take time. So I wouldn't call it unbudgeted. It's what we provisioned, in terms of the recovery. And as Nomai has indicated, that package can move slightly to accommodate if we were now slightly over that, but we're working within those bounds of what it is. And clarification, it was a 30 million interest-free loan as well. So 30 million was the gross amount for Category 3, of which 15 million was Council's contribution. And we also got a 30 million interest-free loan over a 10-year period.
So my last 2 questions, have we made any money from the sale of any of these properties? Where are we sitting based on that 30 mil? Are we over it, under it? Where are we looking to sit at the end of
So I'll just probably add to that with Nomai, that process, any funds that if we were to come back, was to be put aside into a reserve for the actual cost for maintaining them. So we knew that within that 30 odd million, it didn't include demolition costs, it did not include maintenance. So anything that we do get back, which is an ongoing process, would be put aside for reserve. That process, as you see, they're still very much in the demolition and some of those processes that have to go through. And so that will be an extended period of time. But through the 3-year plan, we said that any monies that if it reduces the overall ratepayers' costs, that we would, where we could, and put it to reserve to pay for those ongoing maintenance costs for the what we have to retain.
I suppose my question is, based on that 30 mil, are we going to be a lot over that 30 mil, which is going to blow out our annual plan, our 3-year plans?
No, I think you're within a million or so. It might be a little bit more than that.
How much for it?
Within a million or so. Within that part of it, in which case ours is 500k. So you're not talking significant amount of money.
So anything over that 30 mil, we're half and half with government.
Yeah. It's,
We're not fitting the whole bill.
that's part of, we're trying to, as Nomai has said, it's part of the overall recovery funds. How do we actually shift if there's a need greater for the category 3, then we just shift that around in negotiations with central government.
And another question, have we made any money from the sale of any of those 58 properties?
Yeah, the revenue's been minimal, but I don't have those figures on me and I can get those for you so far. But the program of works is only just at the beginning.
So we haven't sold some and made some money.
We've made small amounts of revenue, particularly when panel members decide to relocate, to take the dwelling and relocate it.
Gloria.
So thank you for the report. I do want to acknowledge that 3 years ago when the cyclone hit us, we sat down at this table and it was very disheartening, and we knew we needed hundreds of millions of dollars to get our district back on track, and we knew that we probably wouldn't even get half of that. And sure enough, I think we got about a quarter of what we actually needed to complete the work that. And so to sit now and see this report and to see what has been achieved over our 3-year recovery plan, it's awesome. You know, if this is my last hui and I don't get to come back, I'm happy that it's on this, to know that that work got completed, that it's well on track, and we're more than 3/4 of the way through that. And so the trajectory of cyclone recovery is awesome. So I just want to take a minute to thank all of our staff, all of our hardworking staff, and everyone who's contributed, not just to the report, but the actual operational, the huge operational task that's taken to get this report done. And I'd like to move the paper. Kia ora.
Thank you so much, Councillor Ria.
I'll second. I've just written you an email, Nomai. I was at a dinner party on Sunday night at the back end of Makarori Road, and people went out of their way to acknowledge the way they were treated at 2P property, the way that Murray and Ian had sat down, walked them through the whole process and helped them to get to where they at. Work still needs to happen, but they were blown away by the support. So I do want to reiterate what Councillor Rita and Councillor Fox said as well. It's been a very, very tough journey, and I acknowledge that. But if we take a look at aiming, to complete 100% of this work, we shouldn't be distracted by maybe struggling to get 10% over the line and not celebrate the 90% of people. If I think how many beautiful cards have been sent to my office thanking the staff for the way people were treated. It's not what we do, it's how we do it. So ka pai to your team, and a big shout out to Murray and Ian as well.
Right, Councillor Taufa.
Yeah,
You can go ahead.
Just one question. From the original, because it was all fresh and it was all new, from the original groupings of houses categorised as category 3, have we got any that have been re-looked at as information, geotech, everything comes to hand? Have we had any that have been reclassified?
No.
No.
Councillor Order.
Thank you, Chair. Kia ora, Namai. Thank you for the report. Some woody debris questions. Back in March, I asked for an update on how much had been spent and was given the figure 38 million. The maths on volume and price here comes at spent to date around the 54 million, which means we spent about 16 in 4 months. With 27 more to spend, bringing it to around the 80. Is that 27 the inside the forestry gate 27, or is the 27 in addition?
It's both. So it's in addition, and this new phase means that woody debris team plus the Tairāwhiti Forestry Action Group want to now work inside the forestry gate. They haven't been working inside the forestry gate so far.
So there is the ability to be flexible with that 37 million?
Yes, based on the priorities for the Tairāwhiti Forestry Action Group.
Right, thank you.
I don't want to say the acronym.
The next question, recovery encompasses protection and prevention.
Yes.
What part do you think your department has to play in the removal of the large pines that are threatening our pipeline?
That's a very
What has that got to do with this?
I'm asking if it's got anything to do with recovery.
No,
It's just not a result of,
We've just been through that.
we've just covered that.
Well, so you're in control of the Woody Debris Fund?
I'm not in control of it. The control sits with the Ministry of Primary Industries and the Tairāwhiti Forestry Action Group. As in District Council, we are the coordinator, administrator of the fund.
Of the fund?
Yeah.
So if this is woody debris and potentially damaging stuff, could this fund be used to help prevent future damage from these trees?
It's possibly, without me sitting within the Tairāwhiti Forestry Action Group, it would be a discussion or a proposal to put to that group for them to decide where they would like the investment to go.
Thank you. That's me.
Before we finish, I'd just like to really endorse a paragraph in here too, which is council is also developing a business case to consider investing in building in-house beach cleanup capacity. So it's something I've kind of harped on for quite a long time now, and so I totally endorse those kind of comments, and the sooner we bring it in-house, probably more control over the expenses we can do as well, and maybe some good initiatives that will come out of the end result of woody debris and how we work with it in the future. And that'll mean all our beaches will be absolutely pure and nice and clean. Okay, thank you so much. I've got a mover in Your Worship and a seconder in Councillor Gregory. All those in favour?
Aye.
Okay, I declare this meeting now closed. Thank you so much.